earth. No wonder they're so frightened of me. And here I thought it was because I was just a teenage human with his head sticking out of a cow's bum.
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell, and my fellow chatter today is another first-time Kongversation co-host, a prominent member of the larger Donkey Kong universe, Rare, maybe Nintendo fan community, and a YouTuber that is just an immense talent that, if I can be honest, I am in equal parts in awe of and also quite envious of at the same time. Please welcome to the Kongversation Pyrrhic Kong, who you may know from the channel Designing For.
Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary nobles, my fluid friends, you have two states that you're in. There was the state that you were in before, and the state that you are now, that I am here to grace you with the greatest clowning that I could possibly deliver upon you, with an excess of worthless Donkey Kong knowledge. And with all of that said, Hyle, thank you so much for having me on. I'm like embarrassed. I'm blushing at that intro. Thank you.
See what I mean? How am I supposed to compete with that? I just feel like I'm tripping, stumbling over my own words, and you come in with this eloquent introduction, and I'm just like, hi, welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle, and then you just blow me away as you always do. No, thank you for being here.
Hyle, I did that like 4 times on my morning jog. Please understand that was not anything off the dome.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. No, I feel like I have imposter syndrome sitting here with you. It really is humbling. So, welcome. This is a long time coming for you to be here on the Kongversation. And I was playing this world of Donkey Kong Bananza that we are discussing today, and I was thinking, maybe this would be a good episode to get Pyrrhic Kong, or Pyr, as you'll be known for most of this episode, on to discuss with me. Because I was thinking, these later worlds, I would like to have a separate, different co-host for each episode. And that will mean bringing in people from outside of the immediate DK Vine staff or regular Kongversation co-hosts. And I was thinking, that might be a good pick for the groove layer. And just so everybody listening knows, there won't be any spoilers on this episode beyond Sublayer 1300 and its resolution, World 13, the groove layer. Our spoiler policy is still in place for now. We will probably be lifting it in just a couple of weeks. I know the rest of the DK Vine staff is utterly loathing me for keeping this in place, but I feel like maybe the 3-month mark is a good point to call it, just out of fairness. Like, I don't want to be like, okay, well, I've gotten past the point of spoilers, so fair game, everybody was waiting for me. It's like, no, I want to extend that to anybody. I know there's still people out there who haven't beaten Bananza, and while I'm sure most of them are spoiled because it is a minefield for spoilers and was pretty much immediately. I don't know how I avoided it so long, but
I'm envious of that, let me tell you.
Did you get spoiled? We're not going to talk about the spoilers, but did you get spoiled inadvertently?
So I got a comment on one of my Donkey Kong videos, and I looked at what video it was. I went, yup, okay. And then I refused to read it. But then from that point on, I kind of was like, yeah, no, probably.
Yeah. I had some blissful ignorance. I, of course, am not an idiot most of the time. Some of the time, I absolutely am the fool. But, I was able to kind of piece together what the end game might entail. And I just wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure. I wasn't even 50% sure. It was just a hunch. And, I don't know how I avoided it other than just completely eschewing all of my responsibilities for the better part of 2 months. But it did allow me to really, really enjoy the game on my own terms, which is what I wanted. And I am grateful that I got to do that, because Donkey Kong Bananza has really been a formative gaming experience well into adulthood. It's not the kind of thing I would have expected. This game has resonated with me in a way that really only games of my childhood typically do. So I really, really started to appreciate what this game was doing early on, but I think it was this world in particular. I think it was Groove Layer that I really began to understand the masterpiece that was unfolding before me. And contrary to my statement at the end of the previous episode, Donkey Kong's story didn't end in Radiant Layer. It seems bleak at the end. You know, apropos for this episode and our co-host, his triumph over Grumpy Kong was indeed a Pyrrhic victory. Pauline is missing, swallowed by what we'll come to know in this world as the great Harmoneel. But Donkey Kong is lost. He's disoriented. Can he bounce back? We will find out on this episode as we discuss Donkey Kong Bananza's Groove Layer, one of the biggest turning points in the story of Bananza. Can't wait to discuss this with you. Actually, I can and I will, because before we start, want to give a quick plug to DK Vine's Patreon at patreon.com/DK Vine. It is absolutely the saving grace that Patreon exists and allows us to do this website on kind of a subscription basis. It is, of course, free for everyone, but we would not be able to do something as ludicrous as exclusive Donkey Kong universe content if it wasn't for the backing of our readers, our listeners, and our viewers. It really has made a fundamental difference in how I approach the website and our output. So thank you to our patrons. If you like DK Vine and you like having a reliable source for DKU news and entertainment, even during the droughts, even during the times betwixt games, as we demonstrated for the 11 years between Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Bananza, then think about becoming a DK Vine patron at patreon.com/DKVine or dkvine.com/Patreon. And we do live stream these episodes for our $5 and up patrons, and we'll be checking in with the live stream as we go. We got a couple friends in there right now. Just Andre and Courtney, aka Alter Mentality, are listening on this weekday afternoon. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Now, Pierre, you, of course, are quite a talented and accomplished creator, and at least in the realm of
please.
No, let me finish. At least in the realm of YouTube, you far outpace what DK Vine's able to do. I'm maybe able to muster a video every few months, and it requires every last ounce of sweats and bodily fluids and energy, and then I'm spent. But you are able to really just crank out these high quality, thought-provoking, entertaining, well-edited videos at such a breakneck pace that I am honestly just, like I said, I feel inferior compared to you, and I can only just sit back and say, well done on designing for your channel. Everybody should check it out. But what do you have that you would like to promote on this episode, and maybe what do you have in the works right now?
Well, personally, first I'd like to promote the DK Vine Patreon, as that service is actually rather excellent. No. No, you're gassing me up. Let me give you some. Absolutely. Because I had so many misconceptions about Rare, about the DKU as a whole, even as a lifelong Donkey Kong and Banjo and Conker fan. And having you as a resource, having you as a constant in the Donkey Kong fandom is so impressively invaluable that so many other fandoms don't get to experience. So all y'all who are here, maybe for me, maybe who are like, I don't know, maybe where do I throw money? Don't throw it at me, throw it at Hyle. Go to the Patreon, support Donkey Kong journalism. That is the lifeblood that keeps fandoms alive, that lets me be able to do what I do and not just lie to you outright and say that, well, Rare had a bad breakup from Nintendo and Microsoft ate them up immediately. No, there was so much more nuance that I was able to experience with that. Anyway, I make videos and they're okay.
They're pretty good.
Oh, thank you. I like to think so. I think that the ones after 2020 are okay. And everything before that, I didn't know sound editing. So don't view those.
Oh.
But no, it's...
little secret though, as you continue to evolve and progress as a creator, you will start to hate things much more recent than that sliding time scale of my acceptable works that I'm proud of will continue to narrow and, bump up in the timeline. So it's like, I used to say the Kongversation, around season 7, that's when it starts really getting good. And now I'm like, around season 11, that's when I would recommend, checking it out. So yeah, just buckle up because you're going to really hate the stuff you love in the future.
Oh, no, I understand. I can see the encroaching shadow reaching further into the past, trust me. But yeah, youtube.com/designing4 or @designing4 on YouTube. We make long form video essays, usually on like a level or an individual character or a boss fight in a video game, and sort of break that down. To note of Kongversation listeners, just a couple weeks ago, we released a video breaking down Void Kong from this game, the Donkey Kong Bananza, and just sort of how he's able to exist as a brand new villain when Donkey Kong as a whole, as a series, has sort of struggled with creating new villains that are essentially not in the shadow of prior villains from the classic era, and what Void does different to strike out. And looking forward, I have a massive collaborative project involving the Donkey Kong universe, and it's sort of the story of all y'all, sort of the fans, and how we managed to shift the perception and the direction of the Donkey Kong series to make a game as shining and glimmering and stand out as Bananza. Because like you, I'm like spellbound by this game.
Yeah.
I'm like, this might be the one. This might be like my favorite game for real.
Yeah. Like I've said, my nostalgia and what Donkey Kong Country 2 means to me and means to my love of this series and to Rare, my all-time favorite studio, and just how large it looms, I will always probably consider that to be my favorite game. There's really no dethroning it, and maybe that's not fair to everything that comes after. I recognize my bias, and I'm okay with it in this regard. Donkey Kong Country 2 is my perpetual North Star. But Donkey Kong Bananza, number 2, absolutely. I'm confident enough now to say Donkey Kong Bananza is my second favorite game right after DKC 2. And so much of Bananza is a victory lap for the Donkey Kong fandom in a way that I don't think the Donkey Kong fandom ever expected in all of our years, at least post-Rare getting purchased by Microsoft. I don't think we ever expected this kind of validation from the rights holder of Donkey Kong. I don't think we ever expected this kind of celebration of almost all eras of the series. And just as a standalone product, as a standalone story and adventure, it excels. But then you attach it to the greater legacy, and it becomes this just fan-pleasing masterpiece that is so seldom seen and felt in this day and age. I cannot believe this game exists. And I know...
I so thoroughly agree.
I know that we have been milking our podcast episodes about Donkey Kong Bananza, this whole one episode per world thing. I know it raised a lot of eyebrows, and I know a lot of you are like, are you going to get to the end of this? I would like you to move on to some nostalgia episodes. You haven't done a spotlight episode on Mario Party 2 yet. What are you doing? And I understand and I hear you, but at the same time, what a moment we are living in. You can't say that about many things in this day and age. What a glorious era we live in. Oh, what a golden age this is. You really can only say that about Donkey Kong games at the moment and feel good about it. So I'm going to choose to feel good about this, and I'm going to revel in this moment in time where we are in the afterglow of one of the greatest games ever made, and it just so happens to be part of the Donkey Kong series. Oh, happy days.
Oh, I fully agree with you. The fact that this game would have been probably in my top 10 games of all time if it were a completely separate series from Donkey Kong. If it were a new IP that I had no attachment to, this hits in a level of world building and gameplay and functionality and freedom of movement that I just find absolutely intoxicating. And then you attach the Donkey Kong IP to it and integrate it in a way that is so beautiful and so thoroughly, I mean, we'll get into it, but just like, this was targeted to hit me specifically, and a lot of Donkey Kong fans, but me specifically.
Yeah, and me as well. Me as well. And I think so many fans see themselves in this because there is something that speaks to them. And unfortunately, we can't get into all the spoilers on this episode, but it would be definitely worthwhile to maybe bring you back in the future where we can both take a more well-rounded and maybe distant perspective of Bananza. But I really wanted to have you on this episode of the Kongversation in particular, just speaking of themes and the meaning behind them in both this game and the larger Donkey Kong series. I think this world in particular does a lot, and it might not be readily apparent as you're playing it, but when you, again, take that step back, take that longer perspective and look back, you're like, yeah, you know what? Groovelayer actually had a lot to say about Donkey Kong as a series and that series' identity and what it tries to communicate. And I'm really fascinated and interested to hear what you have to say. But I want to give a quick shout out. We've got some latecomers in the stream. Hello, Freezer. Hello, March Rose. Hello, S Monaco 14. Hello, FizzTap.
Hello.
I'm not going to say who's saying that because I don't want to get them in trouble with any employers. One of them said, literally called out sick from work to be able to call into and listen in on the first hour of this episode. Well, thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much.
So, Groovelayer. This one is, of course, I was already invested in Donkey Kong Bananza and the story well by this point. You said, you know, even if it didn't have the Donkey Kong license attached to it, you would still consider it one of your favorite games. And I was coming around to that around Canyon Layer, I think. That's when I started really thinking, I'm really having fun with this. And I would be having fun with this if you tricked me into playing it, you know, without Donkey Kong involved. But I would say Groovelayer is, first of all, I don't know if you would agree with this. I would say it's arguably the beginning of Act 4 of the game. You can maybe make the argument it's the end of Act 3, but assuming Donkey Kong Bananza is a 4-act structure, this is definitely a turning point in the narrative all the same. It's the final push towards the game's conclusion. And it accomplishes a few things. First, it begins to really shore up this idea that Voidco, as this villainous entity, is beginning to splinter, is beginning to fragment. Poppy quit, you beat Grumpy, that all happened in the previous world. But then you also start getting into deeper understandings of the underground world and its history. This is where we start to really brush up against the origins of the Fractones and maybe what was there prior to them. You start learning more about the elevators and all these plot points that started to come up in Landfill Layer. And you also get context for some of the greater themes of the game. And I think maybe most importantly, this world addresses the burgeoning relationship between Donkey Kong and Pauline. And it does it through Pauline's complete absence throughout this entire world. She's not there. And you feel it, like, both immediately and throughout the entire duration of this world. Like, you're going back to Ingot Isle style here. Donkey Kong is by himself, and it is disorienting, and it feels so cold at first. You are just completely thrown out of your element.
Oh, completely. And I would agree with you to your point that this is sort of a turning point for the game. I personally view it as there's an extended Act 2, and this is sort of the Act 3 of it. However, I think viewing it as a 4-act structure is entirely fine and entirely valid, but I feel as if this is a point where Bananza ceases to be almost solely, well, not solely, but primarily about its gameplay application. And that's something that you feel from a lot of Nintendo series. A lot of Nintendo franchises are like putting their gameplay application, the feel of the game, the mechanics of the game first. And you wouldn't expect, based on just prior history with how the Donkey Kong franchise has been treated, that they would give a sort of story treatment, a sort of tonal piece to Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
But this is exactly what the Groove Layer represents. It puts the character of Donkey Kong first and foremost beyond any other sort of gameplay application. And I think it's like beautiful. It goes from the game is really fun and really creative and really smart to, oh, wait, this feeling in my chest. My heart is growing and expanding and crying out. And even if you're not a major Donkey Kong fan like both you and I are, and are crying at like the look of a certain fossil appearing, you're feeling it here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, that this world in particular kind of eschews not just Bananza's gameplay. I mean, there is obviously part of that, and there are segments in this world that kind of get back to it, but at first, you are just completely divorced from how you've been playing this game the previous 12 worlds. And in fact, it doesn't even start the same way. That reliable structure, like the comforting familiarity of a video game where you know what to expect world in and world out. And, you know, maybe you have to brace yourself for that end game, where the game is going to make you feel uncertain and anxious, and you have to really, you know, steel yourself for that final push. This is just completely throwing everything up in the air to the fact that we don't even have at the beginning of this world the typical introduction where it gives us the name of the world and the sublayer. It's a cold open. It is, and I mean that both like literally and figuratively, where it feels very, very cold. You are just, it pans down and Donkey Kong is in a jail cell. I mean, it is so atypical from what we would expect, not just in this game, but in really Donkey Kong games in particular, that reliable formula is gone. Donkey Kong is on this, like, he's laying flat out on this jail cell floor. He wakes up and he freaks out. He has this complete meltdown when he realizes he doesn't know where he is. He's in a jail cell and Pauline is missing. And you get these great reaction shots of Donkey Kong, like, absolutely in terror. And there's this really wonderful one where Donkey Kong looks over his shoulder, and it's almost like the game is highlighting that Pauline's not there, because it does this, like, almost punctuation to the emptiness on his shoulders. And I was just like, I couldn't fathom, like, where this was going. Like, why am I in this jail cell? Why is Donkey Kong imprisoned? And yeah, you're confused, you're confined, you're naked, and you're afraid. And without Pauline, you don't even have access to your Bananza abilities. You are just left with Donkey Kong, and any abilities, any maneuvers he might have learned along the way, sans Pauline. So it is just one of the starkest transitions I've seen. I was going to say in any Nintendo game, but I really haven't played many Nintendo games that aren't related to Donkey Kong in the past 23 years. So I can't really compare this to, like, recent Nintendo games, but
No, it's okay. We'll get you on the Kirby train someday.
all right. But yeah, it's just a completely bewildering experience to just get dropped into this world, and in Donkey Kong's, like, current circumstances and status quo, and you just have to figure things out from there.
No, completely. What I love about this sequence, and it's such a fast sequence, is essentially twofold. First of all, Donkey Kong's primary reaction being that not, I am imprisoned. He's used to being imprisoned. He's been kidnapped in between 2 and 4 times, depending on your interpretations of the latter Land games. Mm-hmm. He's very familiar with being restrained, but the fact that he is reacting to Pauline being gone, the fact that that is the major issue for him, that it has superseded his love of bananas and adventure and exploration, really starts to cement the characterization of Donkey Kong through this game.
Yeah.
To this point, Donkey Kong has been essentially the enabler for Pauline to grow out of her shell, to become more than herself. And it's been a very giving relationship from and with Donkey Kong. With this layer, you see the other side of that. You see what Pauline has come to represent to Donkey Kong. You're able to see the bond that he has with his friends, that sort of assumed feeling they had, you know, with Diddy, with Dixie, with Kitty, with Lanky, with Tiny, with Chunky, with other characters involved. And I just think that that's sort of a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And to your point on Bonanzas, you know, Donkey Kong Bananza as a whole is a game where you can play it by its own rules, but the game almost encourages you to break it over your knee in as many ways as possible. And this is the first layer after you achieve your full Bonanza suite. You get all 5 Bonanzas, and then this layer is like, I'm taking it away. There's no application here. You're just naked Donkey Kong, except he has clothes. The Fractones aren't freaks like Void is. He won't take off your pants. And this layer essentially gives you a lot more root, a lot more limited applications for your abilities, and thus the actual challenges of the layer become a lot more linear, become a lot more, just sort of there's only one specific solution to go through them. They become a lot more traditional platforming challenges that Bonanza has sort of let you skirt around and destroy, to the game's benefit, of course. But,
right.
In this way, it creates a sense of isolation and oppression almost entirely through its gameplay as well as its tonality. And that's really cool.
And, I think it's fitting that this is the groove layer because this world is kind of like how Donkey Kong gets his groove back. And that is literally like reclaiming, rescuing Pauline as his partner. But to get there, it is a slow process. And, you wake up and these two Fractone guards are outside the cell. And again, you have no conception of where you are vis-a-vis the underground world, where you are in relation to where you had just been, Radiant Slayer, like where you are in your journey towards the planet core. You have no context at this point. You just see these two Fractone guards, and you've got these rubbery bars over the cell, and, no Bananza power, so you are basically thinking, how am I going to get out of this? The guards start talking, and they say, you're finally awake. So, do you have anything to say for yourself? And you have two dialogue options, where am I? And Pauline. And I believe I selected where am I? And they said, you are being held under suspicion of wrecking our disco. Which, okay, that's not what I was expecting. Like, I hadn't really understood where I was up until this point, but I thought maybe this was some sort of like safeguard. If anybody got too close to the planet core, they would be immediately arrested, and I didn't know. But no, you've apparently wrecked a disco. And they say, just stay put in that jail cell and think about what you've done. And you can keep, trying to converse, and they'll say, so, you're a bad guy, ? And just the presumption of guilt, of just, like, we know Donkey Kong very well, but these characters, and this is kind of atypical of even Bananza, and the way it started. Bananza started with Donkey Kong entering Ingot Isle and all of these prospector monkeys knowing who Donkey Kong was. There was a kind of a celebrity to him. And while that wasn't immediate in the underground world itself, it did grow over time as the exploits of Donkey Kong Pauline were, started to be known among the elders and everyone else. But here, these Fractones don't know who Donkey Kong is. They don't really care. They presume he's of ill intent, and they are punishing him accordingly. So there's that. But luckily, one of them says, well, watch your step in there. The floor is old and might give way. Had they not said that, Donkey Kong might have just rotted in the cell forever. But thankfully, we know what to do now. But, I've seen people compare this in my limited engagement with other people's opinions of Donkey Kong Bananza, trying to remain as spoiler-free as I have for as long as I have. I've seen people compare this with Super Mario Sunshine, or whatever. This idea of the protagonist, this beloved intellectual property, this almost mascot character getting arrested for something they did not do or did not intend to do. But naturally for me, being as rare-brained as I am, I immediately started jumping up and down, and I started screaming, oh wow, Donkey Kong is experiencing the same legal injustice as Conker the Squirrel in 1999's Conker's Pocket Tales. And I'm probably one of like 3 people who did that. And the other 2 are probably in this live stream chat right now.
I would wager that guess is correct.
Yes. And hey, of course, my brain was already kind of teed up for that because we had just collected army fossils in the previous layer. And of course, Conker's Pocket Tales had infamously appearances of Army the Armadillo as one of the baddies that Conker encounters. And between that and Conker getting reissued as part of Rare Collection 1 on the Evercade this November, this is a huge, huge year for Conker's Pocket Tales.
Exactly. I'm so glad that Nintendo created this brand synergy in between the titles.
Absolutely.
Like, the subliminal message here is sublime.
But no, you obviously have to break through the floor of the jail and kind of dig through the tunnels underneath, not to your freedom, but to the other side of the bars, and then you can explore exactly where you are and what's happening. And that was really fun. It's it's precisely linear in a way that Donkey Kong Bananza, especially at this point, generally isn't. Like you said, you can break this game, and it encourages you to think outside the box. But all of Donkey Kong's tools have pretty much been taken from him at this point, and so it forces him into this more rigid, conventional structure.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I don't have much more to say. You're just correct.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I like being correct for once. But underneath the tunnels, you can also get a little bit more context for where you are. There is what looks like an Exploratone tablet, but in fact, it is not. It is just one of your usual lore tablets, but it's written in the kind of musical glyph that we've seen on the Exploratone tablets, that we've seen on Neptunite, that we've seen on the ancient shrines that open up the challenge courses. And here we don't have the banana glyphs, the typical written language of the underground world as seen through all the animal tribes. We get something more archaic, something more ancient in this world. And I was like, okay, there's some correlation there. Interesting. But you learn in the tunnels underneath that in this place, sound is sacred. This is a place where music-loving fractones and eels gather. And it's worth pointing out that the little head icons next to eels depicts the little eelings, the baby ones, the little elevators, the mama elevator, and the daddy eel that had swallowed Pauline in Radiant's lair, who again will learn as the great Harmoneel throughout the course of this adventure. But they say, may the friendship between our peoples live on in a never-ending refrain. So just kind of plant some seeds to what Donkey Kong is about to experience. You get up through the tunnel and you get to the other side of the jail cell. The one Fractone guard is not having it, but they're pretty inept, or inert in this case, where they just scream, jailbreak, as if that will solve anything. Thankfully, they don't attack you with those spears that they are holding, but you talk to one and they basically are like, you're out of your cell. Oh, well, you don't seem like a bad guy, so whatever. I'm just going to completely abandon the high horse I was on and just let you roam free. Which,
You're good.
Yeah. I mean, at least, there is some common sense, although I'm not really sure how secure they're keeping their disco hall if this is their attitude.
Dude, the way he punched the ground was so innocent looking. The way that he performed that jailbreak, it was like, that's a good man right there.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly.
Maybe the Fractones just have this innate sense, but, Donkey Kong had been passed out before. They didn't know, but now that he's awake, they can sense the goodness within. But this is where I had Donkey Kong, quiz them, Pauline, where's Pauline? And they are confused. The one Fractone even says Pauline, spelled P-O-L-L-E-E-N. Just a completely foreign word to their non-existent tongue. But then they put some things together and they're like, oh yeah, the girl you're with, we threw her in jail too. She's up in the cell, up on the balcony. And so, the game immediately gives you some hope. Oh, Pauline's going to be right up there. We're going to resolve this little conundrum and get back to basics pretty quickly. which I thought was great because it's a bit of a rug pull then when you get up there and you see who they assume Pauline is, and in fact is not, and that is Pyrrhic Kong.
When I was playing this, I actually said on the first note, I said, that's going to be Poppy, isn't it? Half joking. And then I saw, and I went, I'm so smart. I'm so intelligent. I could work at Nintendo.
I figured it wouldn't be Pauline because they're going to have to milk that drama. Like, they're not just going to immediately resolve this. I was like, this is going to be, at the very least, a world-long crisis that you have to solve. And the fact that Pauline was swallowed, she's not just going to be in this little cell up here that you have to then break her out. But it was still a great misdirect, especially it gives the player false hope, and it gives Donkey Kong false hope. Like, you very rarely get to feel exactly what Donkey Kong is feeling. And that is what I love about this whole sequence of events. It is actually putting you in Donkey Kong's emotional state of being. Because the truth is, I don't really care about a whole cave full of bananas. The only reason I care about that is Donkey Kong cares about that. But I personally have no stake in that. However, I have grown quite attached to Pauline on Donkey Kong's shoulders. I'm invested in her story and the fact that she is currently missing, whereabouts unknown, health unknown. That is making me feel anxious. And I just love that you are going through this emotional journey with Donkey Kong. It's one of the only times I can ever think that this has been exactly the case. Like, I felt like Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong must feel like, oh, Donkey Kong's been kidnapped. I really want to get him back because I like Donkey Kong. Oh, Donkey and Diddy are missing. I really want to find them because I love Donkey and Diddy Kong. But I've never really been inside the brain of Donkey Kong in this way that Groove Layer has presented. So I was riveted. It was one of the few times where I had to keep playing. Usually I can break down my sessions a little bit and be like, all right, that's enough for today. I'm going to take a break. I think Groove Layer, I was completely just affixed to my Switch 2 for nearly the entire duration.
No, I definitely feel that with this. Had a thought. Come on, bring it back. And we'll pretend that it landed. Dang, I had such insights to give you. But no, the fact that that you feel this absence, there it is. Nintendo is usually very bad at creating an environment wherein you mechanically feel bad as a character. Mm-hmm. If they strip you of something, they will usually give it back very quickly, because the idea of you feeling bad in gameplay is usually not mechanically what Nintendo as a company likes to do. A lot of other series, a lot of prestige AAA series will have you in like an extended walking sequence or debilitate the character in some way so that you can better feel, their anguish or their pain. And to an extent, I thought, oh, we might get Pauline back rather quickly, because it's not a very, Nintendo thing to do to just let you anguish. Not to say that Donkey Kong on his own is anguishing. That's still a delight of a character to control. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it doesn't happen in this way, the fact that it is Poppy, the fact that it is atypical, allows this whole sequence to stand out so much more and resonate so much more strongly as this mood piece of Bananza.
Yeah.
And I really respect that, not just against the backdrop of Donkey Kong or of platformers, but of Nintendo's entire catalog as a whole. It plays with that expectation so expertly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like how as you're going up the balcony to get to the jail cell where Donkey Kong has been led to believe Pauline is being held, but of course it is Poppy, you can also talk to another Fractone who has been imprisoned. And they mention that they got arrested in the commotion with the Harmoneel as well. And that the jailer shoved them in there without listening to a word they said. I love the quote, "Their outlook is as rigid as their body." It just the fractones like almost immediately endeared themselves to me when we were introduced to them in Hilltop Layer. But what just stand out like characters they are as a concept, as this fun in-universe like race and species that like they're just rock people with googly eyes, but there's so much depth to them in their presentation, in their writing, in their dialogue. It is just, again, I can't really compare it to a lot of recent Nintendo, but the Nintendo I grew up with, it just feels so atypical to have a platformer like this and to have such a well-realized, like pretty much NPC race that feels like so deep and has such a rich implied history. Like I think they are one of the great additions to post-rare Donkey Kong lore, if you will. And my God, does Donkey Kong have some lore now? If there was any question before Bonanza, no, Donkey Kong lore is really just this wealth of riches. But yeah, basically the Fractone, who we'll come back to later, says that the girl you were thrown into the girl who was with you got thrown into the cell over there, reiterating, oh, is it Pauline? But no, it is Poppy. You go up to Poppy, and Poppy isn't happy about this either. She's in a...
Oh, certainly not.
She's in a cell with concrete bars, and... which, again, wouldn't be a problem if you had your Bonanza powers, but you kind of have to figure out how to break this concrete without not just lacking your Kong Bonanza powers, but this is a completely Neptunite surface, this jail cell, so you have to find some sort of material to break down the concrete with. Again, you are just so out of your element. You are so constrained here compared to how Donkey Kong Bananza has been operating up until this point. But, Poppy is a character who, a lot of people cottoned to really quickly when we learned, her name in the Donkey Kong Bananza Direct. For me, I was... intrigued by the fact that we had these three new Kongs, Void, Poppy, and Grumpy, but I was like, we've had antagonistic Kongs in the past, and I don't know, I'll see how they are actually portrayed, how the game executes them, because, not executes them, Poppy's not on death row here, but, how they are actually... serviced as characters, because if they're just your stock villains, we've had those before. We've had villainous Kongs in Jungle Beat, and it didn't really have much of an impact on Donkey Kong as a series. Those characters didn't have much staying power, and, it's like, we'll see. This is where Poppy really started to come together for me as a character, and I'm sure that's probably the intention, but
oh, yes.
I was like, oh, wait, there is more to Poppy than just being this kind of Ice Queen villain who Donkey Kong has to awkwardly beat up a couple times throughout the game. There is actually something interesting just under the surface.
Oh, absolutely. I was a little bit tempted when... you speak to her in, I believe, The Divide, and she basically says, no, I'm not going to fight you. This is just my 9 to 5, and I'm on break right now.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, there's something here. There's something to, sink teeth into that is more than just, oh, I'm the femme fatale. Let's see what you got. All right, that's what you got. Bye.
Yeah. You still get a little... I mean, that part of her personality is still intact here. She says, "This cell is simply not my style. I've got to find a way to blast out of here." And then, Donkey Kong can go through several dialogue trees with her throughout this world, but she explains here, for those who didn't put the pieces together prior, that the great Harmoneel swept her up while it was rampaging in the Radiance Layer, and that Void did indeed brainwash the Harmoneel, and then, Donkey Kong wants to know where Pauline is. Poppy does not know, but Poppy reiterates that she has left Voidco. She's cut all ties with that preposterous president, and she has no interest in whatever remains of his grand scheme to get to the Banandium route. So at this point, you're like, all right, well, I guess I can break Poppy Kong out of jail. I guess it's not going to bite me in the ass to free this former villain who still doesn't seem that cool with me, but, whatever. I need all the allies I can get at this point. Don't have Pauline.
I do love, at this point, when you first meet her, your options are to either go Poppy or Pauline! And she'll just treat you with absolute disdain, regardless of which option you choose.
Right.
It plays off of their dynamic incredibly well, where it's like she respects you, but she sees that you're a himbo and an idiot.
Yes. She has a lot of book smarts and a lot of cunning and intuition. And Donkey Kong is not an idiot, but it's very easy to view him in that light, especially
yes,
if
her first impression. Forgive me for
yes.
that.
Donkey Kong has a lot of depth to him, despite the times he was all confused. And so, it is very easy to just write Donkey Kong off, as a lot of people do, as a lot of Nintendo fans might do. And Poppy is very much, viewing him from that perspective. But this is where Donkey Kong and Poppy start to form an uneasy alliance. In this case, born out of necessity, born out of circumstances. The fact that they are both in this strange environment, this prison. Donkey Kong has freed himself, but he still has no idea where Pauline is. He still has no idea where he is, really. And luckily, there is a nearby fractone made out of solid gold. And so you can grab a chunk off the fractone, and you can use that gold to blow up the concrete bars and free Poppy. And then Poppy points out where the exit to the jail is, and then she uses her perfume to disappear for the time being. And
good for her. I'm proud of her exhibiting her freedom. That's great for her.
The whole...
like, well, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, it's not an immediate face turn. It's not like Poppy goes from femme fatale villain to Donkey Kong's bestest ally. No spoilers, but that never really happens. I think Poppy's face turn, if you want to call it that, is a lot more nuanced, but it is more in depth than just, oh, I'm good now. Oh, I've seen the error of my ways, and now I am a crusading hero on the virtuous path. It's like, no, you never really get there with her. And I think she's all the more interesting because of it.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if they, bring back this character for future Donkey Kong appearances. What I love most about it is that it establishes a solid dynamic between the characters.
Yes.
The way that Poppy treats Donkey Kong is different from the way that she views and treats other characters in the game. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have just one simple singular modus operandi, which you might expect from, this specific team. I know Voidco, prior to release, was commonly compared to the Broodals from Super Mario Odyssey.
Right.
And how those are very I enjoy their designs quite considerably, but they don't have much autonomy outside of their base character traits and how they exist as a group. And, we've gotten hints from Grumpy and Poppy and Void of their characteristics before this point, but this is where it really solidifies, and this is where I'm very excited with the character, where I'm just going, okay, I didn't think that we would get the Poppy Kong arc. Let's go. What you got?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, like, that is really where Poppy and Grumpy, maybe to a lesser extent, at this point in the game, really, like, started to feel like actual Kongs to me. And I say that because a lot of people, I remember, like, on the DK Vine staff, like, we're saying, oh, this is exciting because we haven't had new Kongs in the series since Jungle Beat, right? And I was a little bit more skeptical, not dismissive, not just writing them off because of what they weren't, but we had Dread Kong, Ninja Kong, Sumo Kong, Karate Kong in Jungle Beats, and we kind of even had, the same kind of villain to hero turns for them, but Jungle Beat never was able to get in depth towards what was making those characters tick. We never got any dialogue with them, and that's just part of the nature of what Jungle Beat was, the type of game it was. You can do a lot more character building in a 3D platformer because of all the options for dialogue. But I also think Nintendo is a vastly different company than it was 20 years ago. And so I was like, yeah, it's exciting that we get new Kongs, but are they really going to feel like new Kongs, or are they just going to feel like more villainous Kongs that we don't really know a whole lot about except for some very base things? And it's like, no, we're getting in depth towards what makes these characters actually tick. And by the end of this world, I was thinking, wow, Poppy is a great character. She is so different from the other Kongs, but she feels just as fleshed out as some of these other characters, like your Funky Kongs, who we have had the good fortune of knowing since 1994, and what limited character development they've had in the glimpses we've seen of them has partly been because of how long they've been around. And in just this one world, they're able to flesh out this character of Poppy Kong to such a degree that she now stands right alongside a character like Funky or Cranky, who have been around in one form or another for 3 decades.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you view the Kongs from sort of a Snow White and the Seven Dwarves or Mega Man lens, where what it says is their personality on the tin. Happy is happy. Grumpy is grumpy. Skull Man likes skulls. Guts Man has guts, or whatever. A lot of, specifically the Jungle Beat Kongs, don't evolve very much from that. You can't get a full personality or spectrum from them. But with a lot of our legacy Kongs, with your Wrinklies, with your Funkies, with even your Swankies, as limited of appearances as he has, you could imagine a full conversation with them.
Yes.
You could imagine what sort of opinions they would have and how they would interact with the other Kongs and how they commingle. You could not really do that with any of the Jungle Beat Kongs. I would say that maybe Karate you could lean into, that he's a little reserved, but that's a very boring conversation to have at best. And at worst, I would argue that the literal robot elephants probably have more personality than Dread or Sumo. But like, no, with Poppy, with Grumpy, and especially with Poppy here, you're allowed to explore this character in a depth that, honestly, I don't think any other Kong has gotten other than Cranky.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. the breadth that she has to share in this layer just blew me away. And I'm certain we'll get into like the nitty gritty of it, but just as an overview, the fact that I got to talk to her twice in the same layer, I was like, we're doing something here.
Yeah. Yeah, she is kind of Donkey Kong's go-to contact here. And like she is the one who kind of fills in for the lack of Pauline. And that's kind of just a wild 180 compared to where she was just in Radiance Layer. Oh, she's the first boss you encounter, and you're like, oh no. And you're thinking in the terms of these three Kongs, like they are going to be the villains throughout Donkey Kong Bananza. And here we are, depending on how you break down the act structure, we're going into the fourth act, and like we don't know what structure the game is taking because everything is kind of in flux now. Poppy is off the board as a villain, and she might be something of an ally. And yeah, it's just, like I said, everything is kind of disorienting right now. Everything is topsy-turvy for Donkey Kong. And yeah, the fact that you break Poppy out of jail is part of that. But then you enter the main central hub of this world, and this is where we finally get our bearings a little bit, because you enter this large white room, this white tiled room, and we get finally the world introduction, Groove Layer. And it's like, oh, okay, Sublayer 1300. I know where I am. But it's still a little bit unsettling because it is completely silent. It is sterile. It feels like an operating room. It feels like it just has been stripped of joy. There is no warmth to be found in this area. And it's honestly like the lack of music, the lack of color, the lack of anything approaching this like natural vibrancy. It's the antithesis of everything we know about the Donkey Kong series.
Oh, absolutely. I have worked a lot of live theater performances, and it struck me as seeing a set full of color with all of the work lights on. It is amazing how pedestrian even the most beautiful sets and most creative moving pieces can become when you see the club with all the lights on. It's it feels a bit naughty and wrong in a way that just shouldn't be. It's not just an entirely sterile environment like you said, like an operating room. It is something being stripped of joy.
Yes.
And I wouldn't expect that from Donkey Kong. You're entirely right.
Yeah. And like that's why like this feels like it is not a Donkey Kong environment at first. And that is something that I feel like is almost the entire point of this world and what it is saying. Because you talk to like one of the Fractones as you get in, and they do their little introduction, and they explain, yeah, it is not supposed to be this quiet in here. They say this weird purple stuff has muted each of the sounds that make up our music right at their source. And you're like, oh, okay, but this is a disco hall. And they say, that's right. Even the legendary Great Harmoneel comes here to get groovy and unwind, which is a funny visual, which does pay off. But then they say the last visit got a bit too rowdy. He went berserk and then ditched. But if we can get the disco grooving again, we'd invite the Harmoneel back. He's fun. So,
God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can only imagine the Harmoneel as like the hardworking Japanese businessman with a full family at home who is just going hard drinking, singing his heart out at karaoke at night.
The like, salary man
coming home hungover.
Salary man who goes out at like 8 in the evening and on a Friday and just absolutely.
Oh, that's just Paul Harmoneel. He's fun. He's terrible at karaoke. Don't tell him, but he's so funny.
You can get more context for the groove layer then by reading another lore tablet. It says, here in the groove layer, you can feel the power of song in the air like an electric tingling. You can try to shut it down, seal it away, even cover over it with tape. The tape and seals would only vanish. Singing is freedom. Song conquers all. And, that's when the pieces started falling into place for me, not just for what this world was going to be about, but what Bananza was having to say as part of a greater tapestry. Because music is a big theme of Donkey Kong Bananza, especially as it relates to Pauline's arc. That's readily apparent. But I think it's also a remarkable way to tie it together throughout the entire series, because music is a reoccurring theme and part and parcel of Donkey Kong's whole identity at this point. I mean, Donkey Kong 64 is often pointed to as the first time music was really utilized in a major way as far as gameplay is concerned. And of course, then Donkey Konga and Donkey Kong Jungle Beat and even Returns, and maybe to a lesser extent Tropical Freeze, but really Tropical Freeze as well, especially when you factor in the ending. But I would say, look broader. It's also very prominent in the Donkey Kong Country games, not just from the perspective of like the in-universe gramophone that Cranky plays, the very first thing we see in the Donkey Kong Country era forward is Cranky playing that gramophone and Donkey Kong dropping the boombox on him. And then we've got Donkey Kong Country 2 and Diddy and Dixie's victory animations. And you make music on the crystals to release the Banana Birds in DKC 3, but also just what music means to the series. The famed compositions from David Wise, Evelyn Novakovic, Grant Kirkhope, Robin Beanland. I mean, those songs are such a part of the series' identity that even when a lot of people were unfairly shitting upon the Donkey Kong Country games, sometimes the only thing they would give them credit for was having a good soundtrack. And I think that that almost metatextual element of, oh my god, the soundtrack to the Donkey Kong Country games are so good, was then just embraced as the series went on. And sure, playing nursery rhymes on plastic bongos may not be the best way to actually illustrate that, but Donkey Konga, I think its heart was in the right place as far as, being part of that greater message of the series, the power of music. Mm-hmm. And
yes.
I mean, honestly, this can go all the way back to that canceled Donkey Kong music game for the Famicom, This has been part of Donkey Kong's DNA even before Rare, but it was Rare that really, inadvertently, I would say, they never really set out to make this one of the big themes of Donkey Kong, but it does work well with what they laid out as far as nature and harmony with nature. It's all part and parcel with beats and rhythm and joy, really, happiness, and the happiness we can derive from song, and how that is a universal language. It doesn't matter who you are or what culture you identify with. Music can bring us together. It is this great equalizer. And I was realizing all of this just from reading this lore tablet, and I was just kind of wow. I hope I'm right. I hope this isn't just me, jumping off the deep end as I'm prone to do, thinking about how deep Donkey Kong games are, when most people write them off as just being about this silly monkey, as they would say, making funny faces.
No, you're entirely right, and I think it speaks to the strength of the franchise when it can simultaneously be silly monkey game, but also, oh wow, no. It's speaking of the universal melding of the soul. And I think that Bananza illustrates that fantastically. I'd always hoped that the Donkey Kong franchise would take a stronger tack on its musical focus. The fact that in Donkey Kong, Cranky specifically mentions that the bongos are magical bongos that bring people together. I'm like, okay, we're doing something with this here. And then Smash Brothers using it as Donkey Kong's final smash for 2 games, going, okay, no. We're representing that music is the important part of Donkey Kong's soul. Or at the very least is the important part that isn't like, no, this is the cynical cash grab of this is what's relevant to Donkey Kong right now. And Sakurai just took that for whatever reason. But
right.
I had hoped that, like, in Returns and Tropical Freeze would capitalize on that, and they do to a slight extent, but not to the level that I want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And now here in Bananza, you know, as you said, it relates to Pauline's arc so strongly, but I feel as if the game does so much to highlight Donkey Kong himself as a natural musical instrument. Yeah. How he relates to Odd Rock at first is entirely through song. How he is his own natural drum set. Even if you want to go back to the Mario movie with his dancing pecs, those are like no, we laugh, but like, those are an integral part of him. He has a rhythm in his soul, and he shares it with others at every opportunity. And even in using it in this comedic way, you're still illustrating how important it is to the character and how he shares it with others. The fact that he can power up his drum beat of everything as one of his skill tree options is incredible. If this is the thesis statement of the game that, you know, music links us all, Donkey Kong is the embodiment of it in a way that he wasn't in any other game prior to this, but was hinted at being for it. And I think that solidification of it is beautiful.
Absolutely. In the live stream, Just a Banana in My Pocket points out Donkey Kong Country is also a rhythm game built on the hoppings and the boppings. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of the message of Jungle Beats. If Jungle Beat really carried anything over from the Donkey Kong Country games, it was this idea that, like, Donkey Kong achieves this rhythm, this beat, with nature, with the jungle, this harmony, if you will. And yeah, I think it's honestly just this beautiful thing that what can unite all these disparate eras of the Donkey Kong series and bring them together, which Bananza sets out to do. And music, I think, is just more than anything, like the biggest unifier that you can point to and have it all make sense in this coherent, ongoing narrative that's now been going on for 44 years?
Yeah.
You then can explore the disco hall, this very sterile thing. And of course, you know, me being the rare trained collectathon hound that I am, you know, I'm looking for fossils. So I'm like starting to like get the fossil maps, and I'm like, there's a fossil map above the entrance to the jail cell. There seems to be something up above. I break through and I find the warp gong for this world. And I'm like, oh, okay, this might help me get my bearings to see where this is in relation to Radiant Slayer and where this is in relation, you know, to the journey toward the planet core. But then a fractone in this little chamber with the warp gong says, the elevator isn't coming. Is it scared? And yes, indeed, if you try to pound on the gong, nothing happens. And of course, the game doesn't want you to leave this world because you don't have Pauline. So how would that functionally work to backtrack, to go into past layers? But this is when you realize you are stuck here until you solve this crisis. And I thought that was great. Like, a lot of people might not even find the warp gong prior to all of this, because it is like almost purposely hidden. But
no,
because,
it took me a bit.
Yeah, because I was looking for fossils, I did find it, and I did realize, oh yeah, there is no way out. We are stuck here until we figure out where Pauline is. And I also like this little detail that the elevator is just in a state of shock based on what's happened to the Harmoneel. So
she doesn't want to come to the bar that her husband always frequents, just hearing it and be like, oh, there again? Really? No, he could get himself out of it. He could pay his own tab tonight.
Especially where her husband had this freak out and trashed the place, apparently.
Exactly. So I don't want to say I'm sorry. I don't want to look that Fractone guard in the face again. It's so hard.
There is an Exploratone tablet in here that gets into a little bit more of the history and how it relates to the history of the Fractones. And I would like to read this really quick, as I like to read all the saga of the Exploratones on these episodes. This is verse 25. And it says, "Finally, we have arrived at the source of all Fractonium, the origin of us." At least, this was our hope, but it does not seem to be the case. Despite this, we are thrilled to see a greater gathering of Fractones than we have ever experienced before. And oh, how the music flowing from the floor's center moves us. We asked around as we danced and received important information. Apparently, the origin of us is still farther below. We seek a place called the Planet Core. And I mean, I saw that coming. I figured we wouldn't get any answers for the Exploratone until we got to the Planet Core, but I did like the fake out that the Exploratone also thought that this could be the epicenter of where the Fractones originated, but it was not the actual starting point of their civilization.
Exploratone is a terrible journalist. Halfway through, they realize, wait, no, I'm wrong, actually. Hang on, let me get the chisel out again. Actually, psych, didn't, lower. Sorry, my bad.
I mean, when you're writing freestyle and you don't have a word processor, you don't have a backspace, you kind of just have to roll with it and be like, no, I meant to say that. Carrying forward, you just have to lean into the mistakes, embrace the flaws in your writing and just power through.
I mean, I suppose so, but it's not like there's a shortage of writable material.
True, but I think the Exploratone is also just always writing these when they're ready to leave. And so there's probably this impatience, like, yeah. Yeah, the ostriches all gather to say goodbye. Yeah, okay. I'm ready to go through the sinkhole now. But yeah, it's
always so hasty in the editing room, those Fractones.
Yeah. But yeah, I did find it interesting that, like, the Fractones are already here. So at this point, I'm like, okay, so all of these ancient ruins, all of these Neptunite structures, I assume they're from an ancient Fractone civilization. We'll have that debate here in just a bit. But one thing this layer also did in this kind of great disco hall, it finally contextualized what the fossils are for. And I was not expecting this. So first of all, there is one fossil type in Groove Layer. It is another alt color, given that the Groove Layer, despite all the importance we're putting on it, is another smaller layer, a la Hilltop Layer, a la Resort Layer, a la Landfill Layer. So it's only got the one reuse of a previous fossil. But this is the first time we've had an alt color of a Donkey Kong series specific fossil in the beaver, i.e. Naughties.
Yeah, I'm glad to see them. I'm glad to see them in their stock pose coming right back.
Yeah. We also get a new description where it says, there used to be red, gold, and enormous variations. If angered while tottering, it was capable of making huge leaps. So we get a little bit of a Donkey Kong 64 representation for the Naughties there, and a little tip of the hat to Very and Really Naughty from DKC as well.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to see them. Again, just the breadth of the fossils, taking in the entirety of the rare Donkey Kong franchise especially, is incredibly heartening to see.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was talking about it with Joy Content on our previous episode, but I was taken aback when one of the fossils, the extra rare fossil in Radiance Layer, was of a Lurchin from DKC 3, because that is one reference I was not expecting in my just expectations that have been set for what is okay to reference from Donkey Kong's past. Like, they already blew past the points that I'd been accustomed to, right? But then to go that hard into, hey, here's this somewhat obscure baddie from DKC 3 that we're going to turn into a fossil. And I was just, wait, Lurchin?
Based on the size, I thought it was Barbos at first, and then learning that it was Lurchin, who is even less noteworthy than Barbos, I would argue.
Well, Barbos is a Lurchin, but it was the boss equivalent of a Lurchin. But yeah, I mean, it's still like just something that I never thought we would get back to, where the people making a Donkey Kong game would be that free to celebrate Donkey Kong, which is such a weird thing to say. And I feel like it is something that fans of other series find so bizarre and like fascinating from a cultural anthropology standpoint towards Donkey Kong fans, because they don't understand what we have been through as a fandom for the last 23 years and just the long strides. And maybe you'll get into this in the video you are working on, but the long strides we have made, the small victories we've had along the way to get to this point where it feels like everything is on the table again, and you can celebrate and indulge in your series' own history.
Oh, absolutely. And like other series have had long stretches to get there. I, being a lifelong fan of the Kirby franchise, it had a very similar dry spell of exactly what could be referenced and where it was couch surfing, essentially, in that same sort of 2000s era as Donkey Kong did. The difference being that it got where it was going, it got a consistent director at around 2010, which was like very, fortunate timing. I was like, oh yay, Kirby and DK are both getting a new home, and only one of those was true for the long term.
Yeah, for the long term, yeah.
Yeah, but to that point, Kirby has gotten a lot of referential treatment in its music and lore and characterization over these years, and it's been interesting to see that grow and Donkey Kong sort of wither and exist, so to speak. Yeah. And now seeing that come full circle in such a delightful and celebratory way, I'm like, oh, wait, I think I love this. I think this can fix me.
I was like, is this the way other fans of other series feel all the time? Oh, okay. I can get used to this. It's just going to take a little bit. I'm like a puppy from the shelter who is like not accustomed to having a nice home, and I'm just like,
oh no!
Oh, you'll let me on the bed? Oh, really?
It's okay. You can leave the crate. It's fine. It's okay. Look, here's a toy. It's in the shape of a banana bird. It's horrifying. You love it.
At this point in our live stream, Neodynamics says, I didn't really notice the fossils. Game felt kind of easy already, so I opted not to collect outfits definitely missed a lot of those references. Yeah, like at this point, the fossils were just nice references. It was almost like medicine. This apology to the Donkey Kong fandom for having this weird arm's length distance from the series history for so long. But then you get to Groove Layer, and you get to one of the rooms in the disco hall, and you talk to the Fractone outside, and they say, "This is the Fossil Museum." Collectone, the curator, keeps their collection on display here. And of course, Collectone we were introduced to in Resort Layer. And at that point, they're just there to facilitate or instruct the gamer that, hey, you can scan your amiibo. If you'd like. Donkey Kong series amiibo, you get these big golden Kong letters. If you scan the Donkey Kong Bananza amiibo, it unlocks Pauline's Diva outfit. But, Collectone also, or Collectone's little buddy on Collectone's back mentions that they also love fossils. And I was like, that's interesting. That's a weird little side tangent. Here we learn why they love fossils. They are the curator of the Fossil Museum in Groove Layer. And in fact, every fossil you have collected is displayed here. And it is displayed in like an actual exhibit that Donkey Kong can walk around and look at. They're all in these glass display cases, or harder than glass, whatever substance this is. And I was not expecting this. I was not expecting to have an in-universe display of our fossils. I thought it would just be something we would have to look at on the menu. And you talk to one of the Fractones inside, and they say, these fossils were traded to various shops, and our curator then plucked them from circulation. If you exchange a new type of fossil at a shop, one of them will eventually end up on display here too. Now that we think of it, we've seen an increase in high-quality fossils coming through lately. We must be sure to thank whoever's been excavating fossils and spending them so freely. Blown away. Just absolutely blown away at the careful attention to world building. And this is something I brought up before, where I was like, I feel bad that we're collecting all these fossils and then just spending them at shops. I'm like, what happens to the fossils? It seems like a waste of history to me.
No, I agree. I actually sold very few of my fossils, usually only the common ones. Like, I hoarded the rarest fossils because I was like, Squidder's my friend. I don't want to sell him. That sounds awful, actually. But now that I knew, it was like, no, he belongs in a museum. And I'm going, you're so right, game. It's so correct. And then I can see him on display like the bad ending of Toy Story 2. That sounds great.
Yeah, for me, again, the completionist, the collectathon pilled freak from the 1990s on the N64, I was collecting all the fossils and spending them all before I moved on from a layer. And so I was greeted with all these fossils here. And I mean, obviously there are still some cases that were empty for worlds to come, but I was just in awe and walking around, and I probably spent, people have like laughed that I said I spent about 30 hours in Racing Layer, given how small it is and how inconsequential it is unless you're absolutely thirsty for Diddy and Dixie Kong content, which of course I was. But yes, I probably,
and those people are weak.
Most, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like people get upset when I say, I understand speedrunning and I appreciate it, but at the same time, if you're not luxuriating in Donkey Kong Bananza, if you're not spending 30 hours in Racing Layer, you're playing it wrong. People get mad at me because I'm so against the grain of typical mainstream online gaming wisdom. But you know what?
And those people aren't alive.
I probably spent an hour in here. Just the Fossil Museum, just taking screenshots, taking it all in, and just like, Okay, a little fact about me. I love museums. I love going into a museum and just losing myself. I was the kind of kid who absolutely adored a field trip. Not only did it get us out of the like day-to-day rigors of education, I love learning, but I hated the anxiety that came with learning, getting called on like, oh, do you know the answer to that? Or having to give book reports in front of a class. No, thank you. It was a nightmare. And so a field trip was just, you get away from that anxiety and you just learn in this exciting environment. And so I love museums, and a Donkey Kong museum, that's probably my favorite thing in the world. Like there are a few combinations that taste as sweet to me than Donkey Kong plus museum. That equals happiness. That equals contentment. So yeah, I spent quite a long time in here, and like had the Monkey Museum in DKC2 been a full 3D space, then yeah, that would have been great as well. But here it was just so much fun to just roam around.
No, completely. I love that each individual fossil has its own biome. They're not displayed all in the same way. A couple of the rare ones are in, self-standing containers so that you can view every angle of them. Mm-hmm. So if you need to look at Chop Sensei's ass for whatever reason, you have that right.
Right. Yeah. It was just so much fun, too, to be able to pose Donkey Kong with some of these fossils, like the spider one, in the visage of Squitter. And, I just really, really appreciated just the time and attention to detail that having a fossil museum and a destination for your fossils. So if you weren't collecting the fossils before this point, now you're going to be filling out Kiritone's museum, and that might give you that extra little push needed to go back and complete that aspect of the game.
Oh, completely. I was fully on board with selling my friends off at that point. I was looking for the first shop to do so, because I realized, they have a home now, and I get to make funny poses with them instead of just existing in my self and my nostalgia forever. I get to share it with others. If you want to take that as a metaphor of literally sharing the Donkey Kong series with others, you absolutely can, and I think it's great if you do, but yeah.
So once I pried myself away from the fossil museum, which took a bit of time, I then discovered the VIP lounge. And I love there's a VIP lounge. That's just such a dumb little detail. Like, why would there be a VIP lounge? Like, obviously, when this disco is thumping, yeah, I mean, it's basically a nightclub. So, yeah, VIP lounge. But it's this level of exclusion that you wouldn't think the Fractones would indulge in. But it is just a little funny tweak. And they won't let Donkey Kong in the VIP lounge because they don't realize he is a very important primate. But you can kind of bully your way into the VIP lounge. There's a Fractone who's like, this body is our pride and joy. We bet you can't even scratch it. And I forget what I did. Was it I went back and I got a wad of gold from the jail, and I went back and I just blew him up. And I think judging from the screenshots and the amount of destruction around the Fractone, that's exactly what I did. But
it definitely looks it.
Yeah, then they say, well, you've scratched our pride, that's for sure. Please go into the VIP room and away from us. It's a very Banjo-Kazooie moment. Those moments where Banjo and Kazooie bully or murder their way into the situation they wanted.
Oh, exactly. I love the idea that there's this bouncer outside of the club going, yeah, there's no way you could get in, but what if you punched me? And then you just punch him in the gut and he goes, oh, actually, I've reconsidered my actions. You may go in. It's like that fight him option that Clubba had in DKC2, but Diddy just sucker punches him and he's like, okay, I don't need the creme coins. Just go in.
Yeah, it's not a joke per se. It's not written humorously, but the fact that it exists is the humor in and of itself. And so the fact that this Fractone made of metal is just like, oh yeah, I love my metal body. Oh, I'm such a sexy bitch. And then you're like, you know what? What if I blow that body up? And you just regenerate. You're a fractone, but that's enough to really have them spiraling. And then they're just like, go inside while I process my feelings.
Perhaps I was not as sexy of a bitch as I thought. Damn.
The VIP room was really sold to me, though, because, again, I was kind of trying to think in front of the game, like you did with Poppy being in the jail cell that the game makes you think that Pauline is in. I was like, who's going to be in the VIP lounge? I bet it's going to be Cranky Kong. And yes, this is where Cranky is hiding.
Sure enough.
In Groove Layer. And I was like, that is such a perfect touch, because that is like one of the placements of Cranky in this game that is just so absolutely spot on with his character. Like, yeah, he would be sitting in the VIP lounge because he is like a character who just thinks so highly of himself, and he would naturally get in there. He'd be able to talk his way in there somehow. So now there is a clue that Cranky's in the VIP lounge because there is the balcony on the outside and Ramby is standing. It's more of a terrace, but Ramby is standing on the outside of that. So it's one of the few instances where Ramby does tip you off, like to Cranky's general location without just putting him next to Cranky.
Yes. I think of Cranky's locations, this is probably my second favorite, with my favorite being him underneath the number 1 podium in the racing layer.
Oh.
Of course.
God,
of course.
I hadn't even put that together, that he was underneath the number 1 podium. In the, over 4.5 hours we spent discussing Racing Layer, I don't think we made that connection.
I noticed. I was there. And I went, I have to find a way to sneak this in here. Because he's number 1, clearly.
Just Andre says, Hyle is determinedly ignoring the chat, unanimously turning against him. Why are you turning against me?
I don't know. I think you're shaming speedrunners and you pronounce Harmoneel weird for the chat, which is to say that no, they just don't understand the beauty of the game. You're doing great, sweetie. Love you.
Thank you.
Continue.
I swear, this job is harder than it looks, people, being a Donkey Kong journalist. I know it seems like the easiest gig in the world, because you only have one new game to discuss every 11 years, but trust me, it's hard being under this spotlight, okay? I'm doing my best. I'm sorry I don't conform to your cookie-cutter views of how to pronounce Harmoneel? What? Harmoneel? Harmoneel, is that how you know me to pronounce it? Harmoneel?
I think you're hitting the moan very hard, I think, is... They're like, oh, he's playing the moan in Harmoneel.
I'm sorry that Donkey Kong Bananza is making me moan. I thought that's what we wanted. I thought we wanted that reaction. That orgasmic jubilance.
Boo-hoo to the chat that doesn't moan upon seeing the Bonanza.
You know, and dialect is
I play
regional.
Other games.
Dialect is regional. It's all
we're
based...
gonna fight each other with these words.
In my part of the world, we pronounce it Harmoneel. That's what we grew up learning. And you wouldn't shame somebody for pronouncing their hometown a little bit differently than how the syllables would suggest. You wouldn't do it, because you're not from there. So you know what? Back off. God. I feel like Donkey Kong just being thrown into a jail cell for no rhyme or reason, for a crime I didn't even commit. So, anyway, Cranky's in the VIP lounge, hiding away from people.
So
I can see why. Jesus.
Oh, gosh. No, feeling like a real Cranky Kong. Justifiably so.
By the way, I also love that you can see like these tables, and you've got what might be drinks on some of these tables, but they're these very like neon disco kind of beverages and decorations, and it might even just be projected. I don't even know, but it's such a weird detail. But Donkey Kong can sit at some of these tables, and he can sit in these weird floating triangular chairs. and it acts as a chair does throughout other layers where Donkey Kong can regenerate his health.
No, it's great. I appreciate the devotion to the solid light holograms that they constantly use throughout this layer.
Yeah.
It's not just here, but even the guardrails in the jail cell are made of these like triangular bits of solid light that don't appear anywhere else in the game as far as I can tell, but now are just printed out with what I would presume to be like a drink menu on it. Yeah. And I think that's really cool.
I also just love the idea that Cranky Kong is getting inebriated just based on this rock people brew, like this neon concoctions that he's putting in his body, and he's just like, whatever, I'm old, I don't care, I'll drink it.
He loves that fractonic. It's delicious.
He's like, if this kills me, whatever. My wife has shown that you can stick around long after death. I fear nothing.
He asks for it on the rocks every time, and it's the most hilarious thing to him. And everyone in the bar is like, oh.
Yeah, if Nintendo was comfortable enough making those kind of jokes, that would absolutely be a joke in Donkey Kong Bananza. But Cranky's dialogue, his slightly different dialogue in the VIP lounge, in relation to the villain he is seeking out. He says, "What a rotten crook, stealing bananas from all over the place. He's a menace to simian society. I'm a generous Kong, but there are some crimes I just can't forgive." So just, again, at this point, we're, 13 cranky rants deep, and I admit the conceit of this is getting old. Like, we get it. Most of us knew what was up and what Cranky was there for at this point, but I do like that they still are doing fun things with it. They're trying to come up with different ones, these dual purpose quotes that, could apply to Void Kong, but then again, ... question mark.
No, I love their use of what they have for Void's characterization. Again, going back to what we've said about the Kongs in this game, needing to establish such strong characteristics and personality traits that Cranky's dialogue can apply to Void, where you can understand it well enough that this character exists and how Poppy and Grumpy play off of him.
Right.
And it's just a good continuation. Now, is stealing the bananas, is that like a big trait of Void's that is like, oh, this reveals something about him? No, you literally see him do it in his boss fight, but like, it's good that it's here, that they can continue doing it.
Right. I also like the ambiguity of he's a menace to simian society, because once again, I think it was Landfill Layer, or somewhere thereabouts, where Cranky said like he's a senior simian. I'll play on senior citizen, but I was like, it's interesting that Cranky is almost differentiating this villain he's talking about to kind of create this air of mystery. Void is a monkey, and he's saying he's a menace to simian society. Is that implying that the villain you're talking about isn't a simian? Just enough to maybe give some of the people who are hoping for something else a little bit more to go off of. And I don't know. Cranky's whole shtick kind of wears thin after maybe the halfway point of this game, but I still really appreciate what they did with him. I still really like the usage of Cranky Kong, and like in circumstances like this where he's just in the VIP lounge in the club, just a situation I never thought I would see Cranky in, which is hilarious to me.
Oh, completely. Like, as much as I am left wanting more, my problem with it is that I'm wanting more. Yes. It's a good problem to have comparatively to the complete absence of it in even games where Cranky appears.
Yeah. I mean, as I've said, this is the best Cranky has been written, or I should say the truest to Cranky's original depiction that he has been written since the era of Rare making Donkey Kong games. So
certainly.
Like the fact that he is cranky again, the fact that he is a bit of a dick without being a complete asshole, like that is a fine balance to walk, because you can just make Cranky absolutely heinous. In fact, I think Rare maybe took it too far at times. DKC 2, where he's just this absolutely unrelenting misogynist towards Dixie, and like Diddy walks in, he's like, "Oh, you're looking fat there, you little piece of shit," and you're just like, God, like, oh, you're gonna go see my ugly wife? Can't wait till she's dead. Which, God. Like, I think Donkey Kong Country 2 is the funniest Cranky's ever been, but they maybe took it a little bit too far. So.
Oh, I love his brutality toward Chunky Kong in the worst way, where you get Gorilla Gone and he just says, "Use this one as often as possible, eh, Chunky?"
I think, like, you want Cranky to be a little bit endearing and to show that there is a soul there and that he does care, but you still want him to be a bit of a grump and a bit of a insult comic, you know? It's a fine balance, and I think Bananza does do it well, which maybe is why they limited his original dialogue, and he repeats the same lines layer after layer.
No, they could change that, but I agree that Cranky is best suited in an almost Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets relation to the Donkey Kong cast, so to speak.
Yes. Just the banana in my pocket says, I love the implication that Cranky doesn't actually know shit and just leaves it vague to give him plausible deniability. No matter who it is, he can act like he knew all along. He's just got this list of stock Donkey Kong villain templates to go off of, like shared traits, and he's just like, yeah, you know, this asshole who he's got eyes.
Yeah, he went to space once. A lot of them went to space, right?
Yeah.
He likes racing. Right? He has been to Donkey Kong Island at least once.
Maybe.
In theory.
TBD.
Relation to bananas unknown, but has some opinion on them. We're unclear.
Another thing that makes Cranky work for me in this location is he's in this like high-end VIP lounge and he's holding this garden shovel, this dirty garden shovel.
Yes.
And it's just like, where did you dig in from, you weirdo? Like, I don't know. That's
how he got in. He rammed it in between the Fractone Made of Steel's eyes. And he went, okay, you can come in.
Again, it's not a joke, but its mere existence is the comedy. It is the humor. It's just the fact that it's in there. And yeah, I just love everything about it. But there is somebody else in the VIP lounge. There is another Fractone in there. And they say, you're the escaped convict they talk about, right? We heard the rumors. You didn't happen to see our little sibling in jail, did you? We heard they got arrested in the commotion, like you. I found this interesting as well because, you know, the Fractones seem to have no concept of gender and, like, really any concept of self. They are this collective, not this Borg hive mind, but they view themselves as part of a greater whole, of a grand society. And in this case, it is not brother or sister, it is just sibling. Just very careful, very deliberate, very well thought out. The whole like structure of how the Fractones are. And it's stuff you might not even pick up on your first playthrough, but it's all very deliberate. And I don't think they trip up once throughout the entire game.
I don't believe so, and I know I have in writing scripts, and I'm like, oh, let's fix that.
Yeah.
So, like, kudos to them doing that over the entirety of a game for essentially an entire species of character, as opposed to just one, is incredibly daunting. And I like how this sort of illustrates simultaneously the Fractone collective versus the Fractone individualization, where, you know, this is a sibling, but it is a sibling to this Fractone. It's not every Fractone's sibling. And yet they still view themselves as such. So Fractones can still have this interpersonal relationship combined with the overall view of Fractone society that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can rescue this Fractone sibling. You won't be able to do it until a little bit later in the layer. I'm just going to talk about it now because there's no point in going back when we get there. There is a way to switch terrain. There's a lot of rubber in this layer, and there's a lot of gold in this layer. And there is a mechanism to switch something back and forth from gold to rubber and vice versa. And so you can then turn the rubbery bars imprisoning this Fractone into gold and break it. And then they thank you for freeing them. And then you go back and you then have permission to use the barrel cannon on the terrace next to Ramby, which opens up the disco hall a little bit for you. So, yeah, I just love helping people in 3D platformers. That is like, we always joke about all the mindless idiots who need your help in a 3D platformer, but it is one of the joys of the genre, is just coming into this area in distress and nobody knows how to fix anything, and you have to go one by one, making everybody's life a little bit better.
No, exactly. And I think that even as we're helping the dum-dums within 3D platformers, the fact that the reward is so often more of the world being opened up, it helps it feel a lot more complete as an entire world. It helps it feel like our impact on this world is even stronger than, say, even in an RPG, wherein, you know, you would, you know, get 40 pelts and then return it and get, you know, your gold reward in turn. But this is giving a tangible feeling of the world, which you are making more better, more accessible for your movement. It is improving your overall experience with the game and connection with the world simultaneously.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Absolutely. And Bonanza does that really well too, like opening up the world, not just the giant worlds with all the different sublayers, but also just, you know, oh, you can now have a barrel cannon here to get back to there, or, you know, you just knock down a rope here, and now you have ease of access, so you don't need to go through that whole arduous path that led you there in the first place. And yeah, it just makes the world like come together and feel like you had this sizable impact. And now this is a better place to live for all these characters that you've come in and paid the constructones to remove some debris or put in a barrel cannon there.
Absolutely.
So we also get a little bit more context for some of the underground world lore. You talk to one of the Fractones, and it's outside of one of the ancient ruins, the shrines, the challenge courses, and they say, you may have seen portals like this on other layers as well. They're relics of a lost underground civilization. In the past, that civilization expanded far throughout the underground, but it started right here in the groove layer. So I found this interesting because we don't really know what lost civilization this was. Obviously, it started here in the groove layer because all the musical glyphs that we see are on these ancient ruins and the Neptunite and the Exploratone tablets. So were they early Fractones, or were they something else? Another thing, another species that might have ventured out from the planet core. It leaves it just ambiguous enough that we can be debating this for decades to come.
Oh, certainly.
Which, that is just catnip for somebody like you or somebody like me who thrives on just enough information to really make a meal out of. And I mean, I've been doing it with Donkey Kong and Rare games for, I mean, like online for 26 years, but I've been doing it since the very first Donkey Kong Country in 1994. So just to have Donkey Kong Bananza introduce so much to the greater Donkey Kong lore and give us just enough to go off of, but leave some question marks, leave some dangling threads that maybe aren't, tied up or resolved 100%. And it lets you speculate. It lets you just imagine what the answers might be.
I think that's the mark of just a great and well-developed world, not to give you every single answer within it, not to explore it to its fullest extent, but to let you theory craft, to let you grow as a person and to have a connection to this world, to the ideas that it is presenting, to have something to build on for future games so that the world feels less like the set pieces that the developers constructed for this game for you to go through, for you to visit the amusement park and go, wow, that's really cool, neat, and move on. Mm-hmm. But to live in it, to let it thrive, to let it grow. And I do feel like the Fractones and the ancient world that they represent and have grown from and grown out of, so to speak, as they go, closer to the surface, is fantastic at doing so.
Right. And yeah, like, it's just like the real world. We don't have all the answers. There are still ancient mysteries that we can speculate about, we can theorize about, but we will probably never know the answers to. And I like that can be an aspect of Donkey Kong's world as well, and this underground world full of mystery, and we can maybe draw some connections as we're wont to do, but we'll never know 100% for sure unless they just do a sequel and explain it to us, which as much as I do want a sequel, I do like having that element, that lingering bit of mystery, because like, some of the greatest fun I've had as a Donkey Kong fan is debating different aspects of the series, like these little tantalizing glimpses we've had of maybe the history of the Kremlings, Crocodile Core, or how the banana birds might relate to the banana fairies, or, and just stuff like that. And just give me enough to go off of and I can make a meal out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I am still hanging on the thread of, what do you mean that Baron K. Rulenstein had Kremling magic that sealed away a natural deity? What is Kremling magic? Go on.
Yeah.
Give me something.
So, just continuing to bounce around this disco hall before we get to the actual thrust of the world itself, there is a getaway you can build here, and with an architectone. And wow, I just have to say, this is really where the absence of Pauline is felt, when Donkey Kong goes to sleep and nobody wakes him up.
It feels very and intensely wrong.
Yeah, and we'll come back to Groove Layer on the next episode to discuss, coming back here with the full duo and seeing what transpires. But for this point in time, no Pauline commentary in this getaway. And then you look in the little closet and it's just Donkey Kong. There's no Pauline. There's no Pauline clothes being displayed. And you are just really feeling, the lack thereof of that character.
No, the life of a single bachelor is incredibly difficult when your daughter has left the house.
It's so bleak, yeah. Pizza boxes all over the floor, newspapers. So there's also this area underneath the disco hall that you can break into, and it's a little performing area, and they mention that it would be a great spot for the Groove Tones to perform. which is just a nice little detail, little reference to a band of fractones, literal bands, performing arts bands. And I just like how fully realized this disco hall is, and you can imagine how vibrant it would be if there were music playing. So maybe we should restore that music, not just for the benefit of these fractones, but also because that might be what summons the great, Harmoneel. Did I say it right?
There we go.
Did I enunciate it right?
IONL people. Do you accept that? Is that really enough for you? No, there's never enough for you. You keep eating away at us as entertainers.
You keep nitpicking. Andre's just doing it right now. Andre is just nitpicking, saying that I called them mindless idiots who need your help when the proper DK Vine acronym is mindless idiots who asked for your help. Well, you know what? I'm sorry I don't stick to my own dogma from when I was a teenager. I've grown a lot since I was a teenager. Maybe it should be who needs your help, because that's the more generous outlook. I'm not so cynical as I was when I was a teenager, Andre.
How dare you? How dare you grow as a person?
Everybody just wants me to be the same person I was when I was 16. I hate that person.
Perform.
All right. Well, you catch up with Poppy because Poppy is hanging out in the disco hall, and Poppy is your go-to point of contact throughout all of your progress from here on. And Poppy will give you lots of little details, and she says, I've been snooping around, I've been asking around, and it seems like Void has used the Terravoider, or a Terravoider, beyond each of the 3 doors that lead to the various sources of each element of music. And you've got to go through each door, destroy the Terravoider, and restore each element of the music that fills the disco hall. And it's like, well, wait a minute. How do you see them, Poppy? How do you figure this out? And she gives us a little bit more insight into how her logistics work. She says, the glasses you've seen me wear are, in fact, Voidco IntelliSense specs. They have powerful sensors in them. They're stylish enough, but I had hoped I never have to use them again. So I just love that they didn't need to explain this. This just feels like fanon. This just feels like, Poppy's got very scientifically advanced glasses that helps her scan the area. Again, this just feels self-indulgent in a way that Donkey Kong games haven't felt in 23 years.
No, precisely. It would just be, she got the objective marker. And even in the rare days, it would be as often as it would be the Amazo gaze goggles as the contextualization for being able to zoom in Banjo-Tooie would just as easily been we just put a marker there. Can't you see it? It's a video game. Don't you get it?
Yeah.
So having this contextualization again, wherein we would feel the absence of either its contextualization or its lamp shading, is so welcome and so wonderful. And, Poppy still having this reluctantly trying to tell you these things I guess I have to explain it to you. Or when you are reporting to her what they said and you go, they said that the sound is purple now. And she's like, the sound is purple. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then she, of course, comes to the realization, of course, it's Void messing with the Terravoiders, but it's still this condescending tone of okay, I'll work with you, but, oh, God, this is so beneath me. And you get that feeling of it, and I'm happy for that. I like it.
I mean, I'm just glad they clarified, because when they said the sound had turned purple, I was like, oh, now we have to go like shoot up a flare to get Lanky Kong to ingot Hyle, because only Lanky Kong can deal with this problem. It's clearly a Lanky Kong problem. Oh wait, no.
Tiny. You're
Tiny. Yeah, Lanky shoots grapes, so I associate purple with Lanky, but that's just the grapes. It's actually Tiny that we need. See, I would have taken all that time to bring Lanky down to the underground world, and then it'd be like, oh, actually, no, never mind, Lanky, we don't need you. Sorry.
Well, no. Tiny absorbs the purple, but Lanky expels the purple.
Yeah.
So there's the possibility, if he can get the entire voided terrain in his little pipe, he can manage.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whatever. We need another Kong outside of Donkey. Donkey Kong can only handle yellow problems, and this isn't a yellow problem. It's a purple problem.
Well, see, Poppy's name is in yellow, so Donkey Kong can handle whatever she's asking.
He can read it, but then he has to communicate it to another Kong. I'm so glad this isn't Donkey Kong 64. No offense to Donkey Kong 64. I know it has its fans, and I like quite a bit about the game, but it's so nice to have a 3D Donkey Kong game that isn't Donkey Kong 64.
I like Donkey Kong 64. I love talking about it, but I like playing this game significantly more.
Yes, that is a key factor. And I like playing a lot of DK64. There's just the bits that connect the other bits. That's the problem I have with it. But Poppy also, in case you hadn't put it together, she says, the great Harmoneel is a great music fan. Let me give you another reading on that. The great Harmoneel is a huge music fan. If the disco were to start thumping again, well, the Harmoneel might just boogie away the brainwashing.
I'm sorry, I'll give you another read for the audience. The great Harmoneel. Mm-hmm. There we go. There we go. Now we've hit the entirety of the spectrum.
There we go. Thank you. But yeah, boogie away the brainwashing. What a line.
No, absolutely. You can tell disco has been buried underneath here.
So there are three different sources. There are three different strains of the music composition in the disco hall that you have to free. There's the beat source. There is the bass source. I have to be careful not to say bass source, because, you know, it's spelled the same, and I always immediately revert to the fish.
No, don't worry. We would just call you a secret Mega Man fan if that was the case.
I don't know that reference.
All the time. There's a character named Bass, and in the first time it's ever voiced, they call him Bass.
Oh, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who struggles with that. Like, in terms of just thinking it, yeah, it's always bass, but then when I see it written out, of course, I just want to say bass.
Well, yeah, because you have a soul of nature. It makes sense.
And then there is the melody source. So you start with the beat source, and you go through a door, and it leads to a hallway, and it leads to the terravoided, I guess, speaker that the beat is emanating from. And we'll talk about one of the specifics of some of these challenges. These very linear paths to get to the sources. I think the big thing that we have to talk about is the new baddie that is introduced in the course of these tunnels, these hallways to get there. And
absolutely.
It is a late game entry. It is a late game introduction to the pantheon of Void Kong enemies, and it is the Wallopoids.
What a great pun of a name.
Yes, for those who aren't aware, because I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, it is a big wall, hence wall, but it will then fall on you, hence wallop, and then you put the oid on the end, as is the custom and tradition for Void Co enemies. Wallopoid. Now, the thing about wallopoids are they look like normal walls as part of the environment, but then, quite terrifyingly, the first time it happens, Void Kong's face almost extends out of the wall and kind of laughs or screams at you, and then the wall will fall.
It was horrifying. I streamed my first playthrough of this game, and the actual sound that I made out of my voice, I can't remember if my mic even picked it up, because it was just a visceral, do not want feeling that came from me. And I love this idea of, well, Void has literally plastered his image onto every wall. The next logical step is that he becomes the wall too.
Yes. I think when I was playing this, I was playing it in handheld mode on, my Switch 2, and I think I didn't throw my Switch 2, but I very much pointedly got it away from me as much as I can while still holding it, and I went, no. Because, it was just creepy enough, and it really is this great unsettling idea. I love stuff like this. One of my favorite jump scares in what's ostensibly a family-friendly little romp is Super Mario Bros. 2, when the bird head actually comes to life right before the final battle with Wart, and you're like, oh my god, like these birds that I've been going through as the end of a level exit for the entire game, now it is attacking me, and I am just completely on edge. I think the wallopoids are a great way to continue to build Void Kong up in absentia, essentially, and unsettle you as a player, while at the same time hopefully reminding you that Void is really all that's left of Voidco's hierarchy at this point. This is Void Kong kind of puffing out his chest a little bit and trying to appear bigger, trying to appear almost as this elemental force of nature, this inevitability whose victory is preordained even in the walls that you travel through. And, the idea of Void Kong is now haunting every corner of the underground world before the planet core. And, it's just technological trickery. It's just something Grumpy Kong probably whipped up for him before you beat up Grumpy Kong in Radiant Slayer. It's just a facsimile of Void Kong. It doesn't really speak to anything related to his power or his influence, other than the fact that he had smart people working for him. But it reminds me a little bit of King Cutout in DK64. This, silly, idea of King K. Rool before you get to King K. Rool. I really, really like the wallopoids, and eventually they stop being as scary, but they will usually always make you jump when you encounter one.
No, absolutely. I adore this enemy. Going back to your point on King Cutout, I always viewed it as the Kremlin crew going, okay, we are really behind on this deadline. What's the scariest thing that we could put in front of DK? And it's just the image of King K. Rool. Not even him being there, but just the idea of King K. Rool is so scary to them that they're like, okay, if we put him on a stick and go ooga booga booga at DK, then he'll get scared and run away, right? And also we have a laser gun. We should use that. The wallopoids feel like this extension of this idea that Void has such this high opinion of himself that the greatest thing that he could put in your way is this massive, his own visage trying to kill you. It's, brilliant in its application. It feels like Void is almost reaching his end game as a villain, wherein he is mastered control of the ground to such an extent, of the terrain to such an extent, of mining, that he is able to fully manipulate even the terrain itself in order to be consciously against you. And as you said, it's a facsimile. It's Grumpy Kong handiwork at best, sort of brought to life, maybe through the All Mine remote, maybe not.
Yes.
But it's ultimate. Yeah. And what I love about it is it's introduced in an area where you are the least equipped to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Because as the Wallopoids continue to appear, you just Kong Bananza or Elephant Bananza straight through them. But in this environment, you have to deal with them as just pure Donkey Kong when you probably don't have the strength to just smash through them. It is this naturally intimidating obstacle that becomes almost cathartically weak the further that you progress through the game, while still showing, the villain of this game loves plastering his visage everywhere that he possibly can, and will remind you at every turn that he is the most dominant force and that he is here and present. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's ultimately an empty idea. It's like so true to Void Kong himself. I mean, he is all flash, all style and very little substance as far as like his actual villainous agenda. I mean, he's all about appearance, but does he really have the fortitude to pull us off? He wants you to think he does, but again, it's all just illusion. It's all just trickery. It's all just Void Kong and Void Company's technology messing with your head.
Oh, most certainly. He's excellent at turning the world around him rotten. But when it comes to actually, confronting him and even his creations, he can put you in as uncomfortable a situation as he can, but he is talking the talk without necessarily walking the walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a live stream, Courtney says, Void is a big Pink Floyd fan. Just a minute, my pocket says Pink Void, another brick in the wall. It's good. It's solid.
That's wit. Yeah.
I chuckled at it when I read it. So I didn't chuckle at it when I just read it aloud. But when I first saw that in the chat, I was like, that's clever. I need to reference. But it was far funnier, actually, than my reaction would lead you to believe. I was laughing on the inside. Trust me.
Yes, exactly. Your contributions, chat, are welcomed and acknowledged. They aren't perfect today. You're running about 60% of what I expect about you, but we're doing okay.
Anyway, you free the beats, as it were, and I love that the beats. Well, all the music is displayed, as the dialogue had suggested, as electricity. And in the case of the beat, it is the magenta pink that we associate with the Donkey Kong Bananza color theory. And the problem is you freed the beat, but you've got to get it to the music hall. And this involves digging a tunnel that the fractones open up for you. And you kind of have to punch it through this gristly looking dirt. It almost looks like what you would scrub your dishes with or something. It's just this very metallic looking kind of material.
It's very like a soft obsidian, or like in Iceland where they have those black ice beaches.
Yeah.
Or black sand beaches, rather.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like this idea of the music is free, but you still got to get it to the hall, and just the way they visually demonstrate that I thought was really clever. And then you get it to the hall, you get the Bananium gem and the Bananium Gem is titled The Funky Beat is Back, and I'm always going to appreciate when the word funky is used in a Donkey Kong game. But
yes, I point and laugh.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I know that word. Yay!
Funky, I associate with something. Yay!
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio pointing gif. But this whole thing reminded me of Super Mario Odyssey a little bit. New Donk City, in fact, where you gather the band together, and each band member is playing a different instrument and a different part of the song, and you're building the song in effect.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing here, because the beat will then be heard throughout the hall, and you've got the magenta electricity charging around, so you are restoring life to the disco hall, and you do it 1/3 at a time.
Yeah, I appreciate the elements. So many games will often go, okay, do this thing 3 times in order to get the proper reward. Having each individual step reward you with essentially making the world around you less desolate is this strong diegetic reward, is this strong tangible reward that you can feel while playing the game.
Yeah.
And I think that really elevates it as an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just loving this at this point. Once I got past the Wallopoid scaring me, I was like, okay, I really see what you're doing here, Bananza, and I really appreciate it. But then you get to talk to Poppy Kong again, and this is where I think one of the best gags of the entire game pays off. So, Bananza has this habit of only referring to Donkey Kong as DK. It's how Pauline always refers to him, DK. And so we are just accustomed to DK being his initials. And of course, the elders are all DJs. And you're like, I wonder if that's ever going to unite in any funny gag. Well, yes, because Poppy says, by the way, this Fractone insisted I tell it your name. I said your name is DK, but I guess it misheard me. It keeps calling you DJ. And then Donkey Kong does his like Smash Brothers emote where he's confused.
Yes. He's like, I'm not from Street Fighter 2. What you talking about?
I'm not the eldest child on Full House. So yeah, this becomes the gag throughout the rest of Groove Layer, where all the Fractones call Donkey Kong DJ. And the fact that he is restoring the music to the disco hall, it's hard to dispute. It's hard to argue with. He is, in effect, their DJ right now. And it just becomes funnier the longer it goes, because the adoration the Fractones have for DJ becomes a little unsettling for Donkey Kong. We'll get to that, but Poppy also has more exposition and more detail. God, I can't believe this. It's been so long since we've had a Donkey Kong game that is really willing to just explain so much of the internal logic therein. So Poppy talks a little bit more about the Harmoneel and says that the Harmoneel is under the influence of a mind bender mask, which Voidco developed brainwashing devices. Yep, it's true. They make the wearer's mind totally open to manipulation. Even the largest creature can't resist. Did you notice the mask attached to the bluster wing in the Tempest layer? That was a similar brainwashing device. And, I love that. I love that they, bring it back to the bluster wing and just... Yeah, I mean, it's funny, too, the similarities with the Tiki Tak tribe and how they also brainwashed indigenous wildlife, in that case of Donkey Kong Islands. But again, it's a great way to show like how Void Kong is similar, or is at least operating similarly to past Donkey Kong antagonists.
No, exactly. They're doing something that I really wanted from the Tiki Tak tribe, which was emblazoning themselves onto what they are possessing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my dream for, like, if they're going to continue using the Tiki Tak tribe was for eventually a Donkey Kong character to wear Tiki Tong like armor, and Tiki Tong would be in possession or somehow meld with them in such a way.
Yeah.
And this is sort of, you know, fulfilling that need, not using the tikis necessarily, but still creating this environment of control that, you know, Donkey Kong naturally is so antithetical to.
Right. Yeah, but I like that they just, they give a fun name for it, the Mindbender Mask, and I enjoy how all the Void Company technology has a name. Has a dumb little corporate branding, and it gives us a reference point. But speaking of Voidco, you can ask Poppy, "Where's Grumpy?" And Poppy will explain. After you beat him in the Radiance Layer, he lost all of his motivation. But he's not one to crawl off and lick his wounds. No. He was sick of getting pushed around at the company and quit. But he'll find something to pour his heart into. So get a little confirmation there that Grumpy has also left Voidco.
I do think it's just funny that he's hired as this construction expert and artisan. And he's like, "No, this dude beat me up twice. I got nowhere to go with this job. No earnings potential. I'm sorry. It's out. I'm out."
I appreciate that we have villains who actually understand sunk cost fallacy, and they don't just double and triple down to the point of personal ruination. Like K. Rool, it's oh, I'm gonna steal the banana horde, and then it just escalates to the point where the homeland has been destroyed, your species has nearly been eradicated, and you just keep going. And it's Poppy and Grumpy are smart enough where they're actually this sucks and we quit.
So I expected at most Voidco would work as sort of a Team Rocket faction or the Rumble Gang faction, where they are this trio that plays off of each other in a almost Three Stooges-esque way, comedically, and that you would consistently foil their plans. That was my greatest hope for this villain trio. And they decide to go beyond my greatest hope and have them all flesh out individually. They exist beyond their group, and they develop beyond their group. And that makes them so interesting as characters continuing on. And that's so nice, especially the fact that Poppy has to relay this to you about Grumpy speaks to Grumpy's character, as he doesn't want to admit it. He is, inherently grumpy, but he has desires, he has dreams, he wants to be an artist. You don't understand. But, isn't willing to express that. It says so much about the character, how this information is revealed. And it's cool.
I also like this idea that somehow Poppy is in communication with Grumpy at this point in time, because she's still stuck here in the Groove Layer. When has she talked to Grumpy since Radiance Layer? So yeah, I like that maybe they are texting each other at the very least. But
yes.
it is just night and day compared to, now granted, I have not finished Super Mario Odyssey. I got through the Metro Kingdom, but the Brutals in there, what everybody was comparing Voidco to, I feel like I know Poppy and Grumpy in a way I never knew those characters.
Yes. Going through just the previous game of Odyssey for this team's previous game, the only characters that have this level of depth and constant interaction that Poppy and Grumpy do are, honestly, I think it's just Princess Peach. You don't really interact with any other character in Odyssey to this level, to this consistent level of peeling back their layers. Well, actually, Pauline as well in that title.
I was going to say maybe Cappy, but Cappy would be more comparable to Pauline, and even then, I feel like I know Pauline way better than I got to know Cappy.
Oh, honey, I knew Pauline better by Freezer Layer. Cappy tries.
Yeah.
He makes some commentary, but like
I
Mario
don't dislike Cappy,
nap.
by the way. Can I just say I don't dislike Cappy.
I don't either. But like Cappy isn't taking a nap with Mario and going like, "Oh, I don't know, Mario. I really need to file my taxes, but I'm really behind on it." Like I don't get that. I feel like Pauline would absolutely do so if she wasn't 13.
That's the thing. Like Cappy's like, "Oh, we have this downtime as we travel to the next kingdom. Let me remind you about your controls, Mario." And it's like, yeah, I don't care, Cappy. I know this. Tell me more about your life. Tell me about which snow cones you like to eat.
No, exactly. It's the fact that Pauline doesn't feel like an extension of the controls, that she isn't Cappy or Flood telling you should maybe press the R button so that you can sense the area around you, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, Mario sucks compared to Donkey Kong. What can I say? So anyway,
You're right.
The base source. This is where we're introduced to the swap harps. The swap harp is where you can switch between the rubber and the gold in Groove Layer.
Yes.
And I thought this was a really this was a very liberating moment in the world, because this is where you can really then start to get into areas you couldn't before, because you just, is there rubber there? Well, I'm just going to make it gold and smash through it. Or, is there something up above there and I can't get to it? Well, I'm going to make that gold into rubber and bounce. So this really just frees you up to explore to your heart's content.
Absolutely. The fact that so much of this layer is built around this mechanic and it's completely not usable up to this point allows you to explore it to such a depth that you didn't before. And it's obviously it comes, partially when you're through the layer bringing life back to it that you're able to conquer it gameplay wise. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they're able to design so many challenges around this to the point where you do not need your Bananza powers in order to collect a vast majority of what is in this layer is fantastic. It allows this expression of just pure Donkey Kong as gameplay that very few other areas in the game really exhibit. Mm-hmm. And it's great at doing that.
Yeah. I mean, you can 100% complete it minus any post-game content in your first go as Donkey Kong. You do not need to come back with Bananza powers to complete anything in this world, which I loved. I love that, like, there's nothing there that was just gated to the standard Bananza gameplay. It was all formulated to be doable as just Donkey Kong. So, like, that was great. And the swap harp, you also get a little bit of context for it, where they say in their very sing-songy way, the Fractones, the swap harp is beyond our ken. It can change rubber to gold and back again. So again, it's just an like suggestion that whatever civilization is responsible for Groove Layer originally, these Fractones do not know or remember. The swap harp just was to them.
It's interesting because, like, those guys don't have hands. Who would make a harp? That's just a little cruel.
And that's a great point. Like, what did this civilization look like? I'm assuming there's some relation to the Fractones, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, you free the base, and the base is green electricity. And oh god, like you get it out to the disco hall, and then, like, god, everything is starting to become vibrant at this point. Like, the color is being restored, and like you're like, all right, one more to go. And I assumed it was going to be cyan, the blue to match the magenta, and it was. The melody source is the final tunnel to go through. And can I just talk really quick? Because I don't have much to say about the actual like linear progression. I mean, it's fun. Experience it. Play the game, people. Don't live vicariously through us. But there's this great character moment where Donkey Kong talks to one sycophantic fan who almost worships him as the DJ. And it's a very funny interaction with the Fractone, and it provides like almost the driest bit of comedy from Donkey Kong as a character that we've maybe ever seen, where Donkey Kong talks to the Fractone and the Fractone says, "Is it really you, the DJ?" And Donkey Kong, the dialogue option is yes, ? Or no. So you say yes, and they say, "Aha, we knew it was you. You brought the beat back. So we're big fans of you." And the Donkey Kong can say, thanks. And the Fractone says, "And your song, the beat and bass mix, it's so powerful." And Donkey Kong at this point is just done with this. And his dialogue option is, mm-hmm. And then they say, "And you're here now to mix in the melody as well? Genius." And Donkey Kong says, "Sure." With ellipses. And it's just funny because, yeah, why is the Fractone going on? All Donkey Kong has done is like unvoided the music that already existed from their sound speakers. Donkey Kong isn't producing anything. He's not actually making this song. It existed beforehand. But so it's just the overreaction from the Fractone, and Donkey Kong just like, this is how Donkey Kong would act if we actually approached him. If he existed and we were the fans that we are and we approached him, we would probably weird him out to this extent. So this felt very relatable to me. I was like, in my head, this is exactly how it would go, wouldn't it?
No, this is Donkey Kong understands the parasocial relationship I have with him, and he's disgusted. And it's like, your music changed me. I am literally Donkey Kong. Yeah!
So the Fractone says, "Well, the tunnel here is supposed to be a secret, but we'll open it up. Anything for you, DJ." I just love this because, again, you got a little bit of this with the Prospector Monkeys, who knew of Donkey Kong, who knew of his exploits and fame as an adventurer. But this is a whole other level that these Fractones are now just absolutely hero worshipping Donkey Kong, or Donkey Jong, as it might be. And Donkey Kong is just like completely unimpressed with the circumstances of his fame in the Groove Layer.
Yeah, he's trying, but he's like, Pauline and also bananas?
Yeah.
Like, I love that this one-track mind that Donkey Kong has that slowly develops into a two-track mind is completely unable to absorb this hero worship.
Yeah. Yeah, Donkey Kong is still, like, in a state of distress. Pauline is still missing. He still has no way out of Groove Layer. So to have all these fawning fans, like, dropping at his feet, that's not what he needs right now. And it's probably actually expediting his hurry to get the hell out of here.
Yes.
But yes, you then restore the melody, and the song is almost complete, minus what Donkey Kong himself adds to it as a proper DJ. But yeah, I love how vibrant the disco hall is at this point. It just, like, all the neon and all the music, like, you have restored life to it. You have the Fractones now dancing, jubilant, and there are even these, Fractone or like Neptunite drums that are like around the entire perimeter of the speaker that Donkey Kong can punch and add a little bit of like almost a Mario Paint like soundboard of sounds to the song, which I thought was interesting.
Well, considering that they, took directly from Mario Artist, the 64DD project, it feels like they had Mario Paint on the brain, or the Mario Creative Suite, rather. So.
Yeah. Mario Artist, which of course had little appearances of rare characters, including Banjo, Kazooie, and Conker.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's how it ties back to Conker, everyone. But you then talk to Poppy, and she's like explaining music theory to you. She says, just like that, 3 sounds become 1. Music is simply different elements working in harmony, which is a very succinct way of communicating some of the game's themes to you, not just for this, but also Donkey Kong and Pauline working together, but also just elements working together, terrain, like how you interact with terrain, how terrain interacts with each other, cause and effect, the great balance of life, harmony, if you will.
I'm sorry, harmony?
Harmony. Speaking of harmony, the great Harmoneel, got some additional lore here from one of the tablets you can read that says, on the great Harmoneel, this monstrous eel has an absurdly long body. Within its stomach churns the chunks of gold that it swallows naturally while swimming through the earth. Within its lungs churn the echoes of its favorite songs. So you gotta summon this beast. You gotta do it. So you go up to the mic next to Poppy, and you start pounding your chest. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then...
That's as I do.
And then it arrives. It bursts through the ground and through the big speaker in the middle of the disco hall. And the little brainwashing mask comes off. And the Harmoneel then goes, woohoo! This song, this is my jam, my go-to. Woohoo! To which Donkey Kong then has to say, spit Pauline out? Like at this point, I'd be like, have you already digested her? Is this really just like, am I about to experience something very grisly and dark for a Donkey Kong game? I'm almost afraid to ask, but you could say spit Pauline out or where's Void. I just got right to it. I said spit Pauline out. And the Harmoneel says, Pauline, is that a small girl by any chance? Did I swallow her? How many of us have been there, right? Mondays, am I right? Yeah, I thought so. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. This awful Void fellow had me under his control. Urgh. And now that you mention it, my tummy does feel pretty funny. I know! How about you take a dive through my belly and see if you can get her out of there? And it's like, oh, great.
What a terrible creature.
I know.
Oh, wow, that does feel like a child in my stomach now that you mention it.
I don't know. How about I swallow you as well? And we'll get to the root. Like, there's really no good option here that you're providing me, Harmoneel. I really don't mind mispronouncing your name for the first 30% of this episode, given how you're treating this very urgent situation.
No, it's called the Harmoneel because I moan every time I see him. Because, oh, this guy with his personally branded microphone that he brought from home.
I know, right? Like, what the hell? Like, it's such a weird little character touch that, like, oh yeah, I have my own microphone. I'm gonna bring it. You know, I am this giant underground, like Tremors-esque beast. But I also have my little toy microphone because I love to sing in the shower.
Just Andre saying in chat, we have found Bananza's boggy.
Deadbeat dad, check. Always running off and getting into these almost hedonistic experiences, check. Always choking on things, check. Oh my god, you're right, just Andre.
Beautiful.
So what I also love about this little interim point where the great Harmoneel bursts out of the ground, but before Donkey Kong willingly dives into his gaping maw is the great Harmoneel is just in the middle of the world. And in fact, if you go down to the underground section where they say the groove tone should perform, you could see him just sticking up. You can see the lower part of his body. If you go to Donkey Kong's getaway, the great Harmoneel, his gaping mouth is just right outside the balcony where Donkey Kong would sleep. It's horrific. Like, I made sure to try to get every vantage point from, like, to really just indulge in this brief window in time. And I was glad I did.
No, I'm seeing these images. That is a terrifying thing. Can you imagine waking up to that greeting you outside of your window?
I did go to sleep because I wanted to see if the great Harmoneel would be like, "Hey DK, you awake?" sadly,
hey,
DJ,
they
didn't.
DJ, wake up.
Yeah. Hey DK, I think my gastric acids are burning your friend. You might want to hurry up here.
I need my sleep. I need the extra hearts. And can I say just how shocked I am that the Great Harmoneel was not a boss fight?
Yes and no, because there is a little bit more to it. But yeah, you didn't actually have to fight it in an antagonistic sense. And that was kind of a nice twist, because I was expecting, when they started foreshadowing this as early as Landfill Layer, I was expecting that, yeah, there would be this very climactic boss battle with the Harmoneel. But no, it was actually just you immediately liberate its brain, and then it's just a matter of retrieving the digested carcass of your friend.
Exactly. You know, just get what remains.
So you can say goodbye to Poppy before you blast into the mouth of this eel. And Poppy says, "Ah ha ha, it all came together exactly as I planned." Which, you know, she might be just bigging herself up here. I mean, she does seem to be a very cool and steely tactician. But at the same time, yeah, this would be what you would say when you're feeling, you know, good that something did work out. Like, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I meant this to happen exactly. Great." But she says, "Did you think I was just standing around filing my nails? Please. I was studying the disco's sound devices, not to mention organizing the fractones. The music from the speakers merged with the power of your drum beats and echoed across the underground world. This song is the great Harmoneel's favorite song." I said Harmoneel. "You see, it has set his mind free. Now then, I think it's time for me to make my exit." And then you can ask her, "Hey, you got any bananas? Banana gems for me?" She says, "Bananas? Even if I had some, do you think I'd give them to you? Please." Then she does say, "Safe journey, darling." So, you know, it is kind of left up in the air, like, how much of an ally she actually is from this point, because there's still this bit of a standoffish nature. There's still this kind of, like, cool, detached, I don't really care about your plight aspect to her character. But it's definitely thawing, this relationship between Donkey Kong and Poppy.
Oh, absolutely. That specific one is actually a 3-part splitter for dialogue decisions.
Oh, okay.
That you can't go back to. My choice that I made for there was actually "Come With Me."
Oh,
because
okay.
I was like, I want Poppy to be on Donkey Kong Island. I want you to be a recurring character. We will get you a treehouse. And she is a bit shocked at first. Like, there's like one text box where she's somewhat considering it, where she sort of has the expression that she has in your bananas expression before actually rather politely declining you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe I should have been a little bit more inviting then, rather than immediately demanding bananas. But, you know, I think a lot of fans, judging by some of the art that I've seen of Poppy Kong, have selected "Come With Me." as their option in that dialogue branch.
No, there's a different variation of those words they would most likely use. But, yes, no, I see your point.
Yes. Poppy is definitely, speaking in musical terms, striking a chord with segments of the fandom. And,
absolutely. She is popping.
Yeah, a lot of fans are popping right now. Anyway, moving on, blasting through that barrel, diving through the giant mouth and the wagging tongue of the Harmoneel, you then are just thrust into this sequence, kind of a sinkhole variation. Kind of like a boss version of a sinkhole, in fact. One of the sinkhole dives that you would experience going from layer to layer. In this case, you're in the Harmoneel, the Harmoneel, and
beautiful, thank you. The
yes.
entire spectrum has been lit up.
You then see Pauline, but she is reverted. She is now once again Oddrock. Which, what a striking visual after all this time to see her as Oddrock again.
Oh, fully agreed. Now, I have like 2 reads on this, but I want to ask you, how do you think that she became Oddrock again?
So, like, as far as I can tell, like, what is the device that Void Kong has? The All-Mine?
The All-Mine remote.
The All-Mine remote, right. I only learned that from the ABCs of Donkey Kong Bananza on Nintendo's news feed on the Switch too. But yeah, I imagine that the Harmoneel swallowed Pauline, and it was under Void's control. So then Void simply used the All-Mine remote to make her Oddrock again and keep her prisoner within the Harmoneel.
See, that makes a lot of sense. I was struggling if it's like, okay, it's this feeling of greatest isolation that's like literally entrapping her in this area that is literally reverberating with Void's influence that is keeping her there. But there's also the very funny route of Void chose to be swallowed so that he could shoot a child and then immediately leave.
So, yeah, I think, like, what you're speaking of is definitely the, like, thematic intention. But I think, practically speaking, yeah, he probably just shot a child in the belly of an eel.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to make sure that Void was exactly that petty. We can continue.
But it's not just that she is Oddrock within the Harmoneel. She's also being restrained by all of this Void code tape. Like, there is that, like, tape across Oddrock, but then there's even more tape holding her back, keeping her, like, static as a prisoner.
No, absolutely. It's an incredibly striking visual, almost certainly. And, like, Harmoneel sucks for not helping us in any way and making it more difficult than naturally moving landmasses, but hey.
I mean, I don't know why your first instinct wouldn't be to try to get the Harmoneel to vomit. It's like when your dog eats something you don't want them to eat. You try to get them to throw up. You don't say, well, it's time to dive into the mouth of my dog. See what happens.
No, exactly. It's like even the most famous example of this, of like Monstro the whale from Pinocchio, is like setting a fire in his belly so he sneezes it out. And Harmoneel is just like, nah, what if I ate you?
I mean, I'm sure Donkey Kong has compared notes with his adventuring compatriots like Banjo. And they're like, yeah, one time we had to go in the mouth of a big fish because Jolly Roger's partner had been swallowed. And Donkey Kong was reminding that. It's like being reminded of that. And he was like, well, I guess if Banjo did it, I can do it too.
Well, I guess I have to blow up your teeth now.
Yeah. Speaking, Clanker and God, like, yeah, Donkey Kong is just continuing a grand tradition here. But, yeah, this whole, like, segment of the, like, faux sinkhole dive, trying to reach Odd Rock, trying to reach Pauline in her stone form, and you get this timer, you get this countdown, and, you know, I did this in one go. I don't know how real this is, if there is really any danger, or if this is just all artifice, if this is just, like, a big lavish set piece that's designed to make you feel like, oh, I only have like a minute to free Pauline, or that she'll be Odd Rock forever. Cause you just catch up with her eventually, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly didn't fail it my first time because I felt that dramatic impetus.
But it was dramatic,
as funny
right?
as it would be a fail. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it was intense. I was feeling incredibly anxious. I was like, I've got to get her. What if I fail? Will Donkey Kong Bananza just end? Will I have to start over from the beginning? You know, you don't know. So you'll want to reach her. And I got to her. And, yeah, you free her and you free Odd Rock, and she then burst back into Pauline form in the clothes she was wearing when you last saw her in Radiant Slayer. In my case, it was the Rattly inspired outfit, which was very funny. This big dramatic moment to be reminded of my friend Rattly the Rattlesnake. And
of course.
She pops out, and this is the little cutscene we saw in the Donkey Kong Bananza Direct. So we knew this was coming. We just didn't know where in the game it would fit in, where she says, DK, I knew you'd come for me. I just knew it. Thanks, big guy. And then she says, DK, I have a hard time singing in front of people, but when we're together, I love to sing more than anything. DK, I've never told anyone this before, but I have this dream. Maybe if we can get to the surface, you and me, we can make it more than a dream. And this whole thing happens, I guess, as you're in the stomach of the Harmoneel. You've got this, like, pink viscera. I don't even know what we're looking at here.
Well, I think, like, in one of these where DK is punching through, isn't that the side of the Harmoneel there?
Oh, maybe it is. So he's out of the Harmoneel at this point, and he's back in the sinkhole?
Yeah, that's why I'm reading from it, just because, like, the background looks very similar to the texture of the rock in the next layer.
Yeah. Well, I guess it wasn't clear to me. And of course, I was very frazzled after rescuing Odd Rock, but I read this whole thing as you're just in the pink gooey innards of a big eel. This big dramatic reunion of Donkey Kong and Pauline, now inseparable. And they're like, oh, when we get to the surface, maybe we'll make our dreams become a reality. But first, let's make sure we get out of this eel. Where's the anus?
Yes, no, my favorite Pauline quote. Where's the anus?
And then it fades to black and you just hear...
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling.
Yeah, no, it is just the fractone sweeping up in Groove Layer. That's the whole Frasier end credit sequence there. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyway, what a world! What a like almost side tangent to the structure of Donkey Kong Bananza.
Well, I believe it's literally a tangent. I believe when you look at the map, the groove layer is actually on a different plane as the rest of the sinkhole going down.
Yeah, it's not part of the regular trajectory. That's why I almost wish it wasn't Sublayer 1300. I wish it was like... I don't know how you would differentiate it, but it does feel like it is a branching path to nowhere in particular.
No, exactly. But it resonates with so many of the messages that the game wants to put across to the player so strongly. And as we've gone over, is just such a depth for the characters and a mood piece, and is representative of all that I would say that this version of Donkey Kong and his bond with Pauline and even Voidco as a force is.
Mm-hmm. And they're pointing out in the live stream that, yes, Donkey Kong does punch out of the side of the Harmoneel, but it's okay because the Harmoneel is probably made of fractonium, so it will just regenerate. You didn't just kill the Harmoneel, and then you go back to the landfill layer, and they're all in mourning over the death of their husband and father.
Oh, I don't think they'll be mourning. I think they'll be like, well, it was inevitable. If it wasn't you, it was the drinking.
I is a deadbeat dad. We've already established. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Freezer says, wow, 3 hours about the worst world in the game. Come on. No.
Yeah, funny. This isn't the freezer layer.
Oh! Oh! But maybe it's true. But maybe it's no. I mean, the divide or the junction.
I know.
Despite the weird devotion some of our listeners seem to have for the latter, or for the former, those are the worst worlds just by default. Come on now.
No, I entirely agree with that assessment.
We have some calls to take. I broke my rule in this, so we got a lot of calls for this episode. And I've been trying to limit the calls to 5, unless we did one of those combined looks at, like, the divide and freezer layer or forest layer in the junction. But I decided to play 6 calls for this, but I still had to exclude some of your calls. So apologies. We will eventually do a Donkey Kong Bananza post-spoiler call sack episode. But, yeah, I had to draw the line somewhere because, I don't have all the time in the world to take, like, something like the 13 calls we got.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So I halved it as much as I could, and here we go. We got 6 calls to play. Are you ready to play the first call?
Yeah, I'm all set. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hi, DK Vine. This is Claire. Also, my dog just started barking right as I called. But I wanted to call to talk about the Groove Layer, which I think is the coolest of the smaller worlds in the game. My favorite is the Radiance Layer, and you can tell by the fact that I didn't call in for that one. But yeah. The Groove Layer. I think the Groove Layer is pretty cool because I think that the Donkey Kong Bananza developers really do grasp how important music is to the Donkey Kong franchise. Cause I think I've always associated with music because I remember like Returns and Tropical Freeze, like the first time I really fell in love with like a video game's like music. And then there's also, of course, like, the Donkey Konga games and Jungle Beat with the bongos. And also the original trilogy is also known for its music as well. So I think it's pretty cool that they had a music themed level. That being said, for the first part of the level, there is no music, but I think it's really interesting how you have to bring back different parts of the song one by one with the beat, the bass, and the melody. It's peak fiction, even though the actual final song, the plays aren't really like that much, but that's neither here nor there. I also, when I was first playing, I thought that this was going to be like the final like world right before the ending. Like I thought that this was going to come right before the final world or something. Which, honestly, the fact that there's, I don't know, this is what I would say, there's just like another radio level after this. I kind of wish this was the last, like level before like the big confrontation, Because I think that just would have felt a lot better pacing wise. I don't know, that's just me. Also, Poppy Kong is really cool in this level. I really like Poppy Kong here. I really hope that the Voidco Kongs come back. And also, it's pretty interesting that this is one of like the more story-heavy layers. How you're, for the first time since the start of the game, you're separated from Pauline, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah. Thanks for hearing my call. I'll see you guys later.
Well, thank you for the call, Claire, and thank you for the barks, Claire's
Yes,
dog.
thank you, Claire's dog.
Yeah. We're never unpleased when we hear our animal friends in the background of calls or even recording these podcasts sometimes. But yeah, like, I see your point about, like, thinking that Groove Layer was going to be the, like, penultimate experience right before the end. In some respects, I get that. Without getting into discussing the next world, because I want to, spoilers and everything, and I want to save that for the next episode. I do think the next world serves a couple important points and has a role to play in the larger narratives of Donkey Kong Bananza. It's not readily apparent, like, why are we doing this? Why is this world existing? This feels like a tonal whiplash. It took a bit of time actually being in that world to understand why we had that almost cool down from Groove Layer. There is a point, but I can't talk about it yet. Next time, Claire, I'll address it. But anything you want to speak to from what Claire said?
Why, I do absolutely want to say that, like, the next layer is one of my favorites, if not my favorite in the game. Just from a pure play perspective, so I'm very happy it exists.
Yeah.
This does feel like a natural climactic beat, but I do feel like we had to have another full layer after it, so to speak. Just for, like, pacing's sake, I feel like ending with a full world is stronger than ending with a half world. I do agree that, like, the actual song that plays, whilst it is very strong, is a bit weaker. Like, if I were fan directing the game, this is where I would put the DK rap in. And the final layer would be the lyrics of the DK rap blasting through. And the Harmoneel going, "This is my favorite song," would be such catharsis.
Yeah, but then why would they call him DJ if they're so well acquainted with DK?
Well, they don't know he's the DK.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's like a celebrity from some island over there. Like, I don't know.
Like, I
they
could
just
see...
got this record one day that, like, Grant Kirkhope buried in order to make sure no one would find it. And then they uncovered it and are like, this is the best tune we've ever heard.
As fun as it would be to have it be something familiar, like DK Island Swing, or maybe even, like, some remix of the DK arcade theme. I like that, it is something original. And music is subjective, just because it doesn't resonate with us doesn't mean it wouldn't be the most incredible piece, the most incredible composition to these fractones and the great Harmoneel. Like, it's something that I've had to really understand as I've gotten older, just not to be such a music snob. Some people have different tastes than me. That's fine, because music speaks to us individually, and yes, as a larger collective, but it's all based on your own life experiences and upbringing sometimes, what, like, strikes a chord with us. And Donkey Kong didn't grow up in Sublayer 1300, nor did we.
No, I absolutely agree with that assessment. This is just me doing the most fan-wanky thing I could absolutely do, picking at nits that do not exist, but just creating them.
Just the Banana in My Pocket points out it's the same song as the Fractone Villages, just up-tempo. I hadn't realized that.
Damn, they got one song.
Yeah, but I like that
Never mind.
because we do hear it, in Hilltop Layer and then again in Landfill Layer. And Groove Layer is very much almost like the culmination of that trilogy of worlds, where we get the, like, modern day village of the Fractones. We get the Fractone and Eel little community. And then we get, like, this ancient, older enclave of Fractones and maybe whatever came before the Fractones. And yeah, I like that thematic unity between the three.
Okay, you're completely right, but have you considered, the Fractones are one-hit wonders? This is the Who Let the Dogs Out of Donkey Kong music?
There's better one-hit wonders than Who Let the Dogs Out. Like, there are some one-hit wonders where I'm like, yeah, you came up with a masterful song. You came up with something that's going to stand the test of time. You didn't have a second one in you. Oh, well, that's still better than I'll ever do. And Who Let the Dogs Out is not the one I would go to. Like,
No, exactly.
At the very least, mbop, doo-wop, odd rock. I don't know what the lyrics are.
Are you just doing Carmen Sandiego?
No, Hanson.
Oh, okay.
Mbop.
I don't know music.
I'm the product of the 90s.
I am literally a product of the 90s. My issue is I got an MP3 player, and my mother said, do not dare put video game music on this. Put actual listenable music on it. So I put in Welcome to the Jungle because it was jungle associated, and then I put in the DK rap, and I felt so ashamed that I never pursued music.
Wow, and it's because of the music of the Donkey Kong Country trilogy that it really opened my heart to music. And I just, it became my second biggest passion after the DKU.
Funny how life works out.
Yeah, take different sinkholes, I guess, and wind up in different sublayers of life.
We're not so different, you and I. In another world, we could have been friends.
All right, thank you for the call, Claire, and thank you, Claire's dog. Hope you got what you wanted there. Let's take our second call.
Hello, this is Becky Starr, and my favorite part about the groove layer in Donkey Kong Bananza is probably the swap harp and how you can use it to swap the rubber and the gold, and because when you need to use it, when you need to use a certain part of it for something, you can swap it around, because I think it was pretty well established that rubber can't be breakable at all, and it's a pretty good bounce material because of it. And when you need gold for something, you can just swap in between it, and that might have been the first time it was established that throwing a gold chunk at concrete can break it, since you're pretty limited without your bonanza powers. I think that was a pretty cool way to use it, and yeah, it's pretty great. That's it. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thank you for the name, Becky Star. I think you said. But
yes,
yeah,
Becky Star.
Yeah, the swap harp, underrated mechanic, and when I realized I could kind of take around chunks of the rubber, which, unbreakable, you can normally not use it as chunks, right? It's normally just part of the landscape, but here you can rig it so you can carry around gold, turn it into rubber, and then you have almost like portable trampolines. We didn't really stress that, but you can have these portable little bouncy trampolines that you can take anywhere within Groove Layer. And eventually the swap harps open up and you can have a swap harp in each section, and you can then just have ease of access and take these little bouncy like moon shoes, if you will, wherever you want. And yeah, I mean, one of the things that astounds me about Donkey Kong Bananza, because I am not usually a gameplay-oriented brain. I'm always thinking about the in-universe atmosphere, the history, the dialogue, the characters. That's my area of expertise. I am not a gamesman. I'm not even a gamer all that much. Hence my aversion to speedrunning and just standing around in Racing Layer for 30 hours. I'm all about losing myself in the atmosphere of a world. So, you know, a gameplay mechanic, game design even, is brilliant when even I'm sitting up and taking notice of it and saying, you know, Donkey Kong Bananza really does just such a masterful job of juggling all the different types of terrain that Donkey Kong and Pauline interact with.
No, I completely agree with you there. As my philosophy is usually, I love, gameplay application. I love lore and worlds and whatnot. When those two marry, when they look at each other and they kiss because they realize that they're two disparate pieces of a full whole, then I just feel delighted. That is the high that I chase with every single game. And as much as we have this narrative conceit that is so strong in this layer, the swap harps specifically do so much. There's one specific challenge where it's just this pillar of rubber material, and there's a banana at the top, and you have to figure out how to get it, and slowly deconstructing that, turning it into gold, breaking out chunks, so you're essentially making your own footholds as you bounce from individual piece to individual piece in almost this scaling Click-Clock Woods main tree kind of way. It's so cool. It's so, expansive of Donkey Kong's concepts, and considering how much the game relied on its Bananza abilities to allow you to destroy it, the fact that the groove layer opens up in a way wherein Donkey Kong's inherent abilities are enough to change the game around him, to mess with it, to make these portable trampolines, as you said.
Yeah.
And that it comes at the crescendo of all of his music coming together. It's literally the layer opening up as it becomes full of life again. It's brilliant. It's great. I like this game.
I love it. When they were breaking down what Bananza would entail, I think it was those early Treehouse gameplay sessions, and they started talking about different terrain and what Donkey Kong can immediately break and what he'll have to use, and I think it was around the time they introduced Boom Rock to us, I was like, this seems a bit much. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't want to know how hard terrain is. I don't have to think about that when I'm playing a Donkey Kong game. What is this? Of course, trying to suppress those negative emotions at a time when we just didn't know. And boy, I'm glad I suppressed those negative emotions, because the game doesn't overwhelm you with it. It's a very slow and steady build towards getting acquainted with everything, learning how everything works, and how do I break concrete? There are a couple different ways. And you just absorb that as secondhand knowledge, just the same way you would have once absorbed roll jumping in a Donkey Kong Country game. And God, I am so glad this game is what it is. It's again, I've said this quite a bit, but Donkey Kong Bananza would have never been the Donkey Kong game I would have requested, but it's the Donkey Kong game I'm glad we were given.
I agree. I think my statement of it was, Donkey Kong Bananza is a game built for me. If I made this game personally, it would be a worse game than Donkey Kong Bananza, because what has been considered in this game is absolutely incredible.
I mean, my ideal Donkey Kong game wouldn't have even been a game. It's just all the Kongs standing around having a chat for 150 hours.
Oh, dude, a 40-minute Wrinkly Kong monologue? Sign me up, please.
Yeah. My ideal Donkey Kong game is just existing on Donkey Kong Island with no stakes. So don't listen to me, Nintendo. I have a rubbish brain for this.
No, you're cooking for the Donkey Kong visual novel when it comes out.
Yeah. Thank you for the call. Let's play our third caller.
Hello, DK Fine Crew. This is Jero Romero, also known as the lame name Jero in some places, mainly in the DK Fine forum specifically. But yeah, this is my first time participating in a hotline like this because I legit don't know how. But anyway, since we're talking about Donkey Kong in prison, Hyle, what was your thought about that idea? I know you have a fascination when it comes to characters being arrested in some places, and of course, jokingly thought about like Bumper being arrested and all. So, was this like shocking to you? Were you like, oh, did Nintendo listen to me and my fiction? Because yeah, I kind of realized about that and thought about your interesting experiences when it comes to those kinds of things. Other than that, yeah, it was pretty interesting that him and other characters got arrested somehow, which, But, yeah, was this very interesting and fun for you? I have no idea if anyone else answered this question, but, yeah. Other than that, yeah, it was interesting, and I hope you have a great day, all of you. Hopefully we do get more Donkey Kong games, because it needs to happen. Come on, let's be real. Other than that, goodbye everyone. I'll see you when, the video gets out. I highly doubt it will be on the screen. Later!
Well, thank you for the call, Jero. As you might have heard from earlier in this episode, I loved Donkey Kong getting arrested. Long overdue. Lock him up. Lock him up. But I have to correct you. Bumper being arrested isn't my fan fiction. That is Rare canon given from on high from Rare themselves. Bumper was arrested. It wasn't portrayed in a video game, but it has been the trajectory of his life post Diddy Kong Racing. I didn't make that up.
No, it's absolutely true. Conker said it in a press release, and it's been corroborated.
Yeah. And look, I never thought Donkey Kong got arrested for the same reason that Bumper did. That's not Donkey Kong's style, and that's not his kink. But yeah, like I thought this was just a brilliant and stark, like cold open to this world. And it really, like, on top of everything else, having Donkey Kong imprisoned, I thought was just like the most interesting conceit they could have done. I'll get more into it when I share my final thoughts as we wrap up this episode. But I think there was a very deliberate tonal reason why they did that.
Oh, no, absolutely and definitely. And, like, it's nice to see Donkey Kong in jail when he's not... Let me finish the sentence. I gathered what I was saying midway through, but I chose to commit. It's nice to see Donkey Kong in jail when he's not being tied up and shot and beaten by a gun, or when he is imprisoned by the Smithy gang in Mario RPG throwing barrels at you with literal chains around him. It is good to see him there under pretenses that we know are false and are there to better illustrate the themes of the game. Though I do have to question, why was the prison built inside of the disco, and who did they imprison there before?
Right. I think that really it just shows like the strength of those cocktails they serve throughout the disco hall. It's just, things get rowdy sometimes, and you have to just put them in a drunk tank.
They're just looking at Cranky, and they're just cleaning up a cell. They're being like, it's only going to be a matter of time.
Yeah. If they weren't, like, really bothered by the greater matters troubling them, I'm sure Cranky Kong would have been jailed by the end of Groove Layer, just given how unruly he was becoming.
Well, 100%. Like, he brought a shovel in. That's weird.
That's weird, yeah. Like, and by the way, has anybody seen his wife for the last 26 years?
Oh, God. He's just like the great Harmoneel.
And Jero, like, I can't speak on any authority to this, given that, like, my area of insight was that just Nintendo EPD is working on a new Donkey Kong game for the longest time. But yeah, I would imagine we're getting a Donkey Kong game sooner rather than later. Later being 11 years. It's at the point now where the series is reestablished. I would imagine the next game we're getting would be something more along the lines of a Donkey Kong Country. but I think the days of the long droughts between games are at an end.
The fact that we're in a world where we can reasonably have a Donkey Kong spin-off on the level of not even like a Mario Tennis, but in the same way that we can get like a Hyrule Warriors or a Kirby's Dream Buffet or something like that we can have a Donkey Kong title at that level will buoy the franchise so nicely.
Everybody's kind of been speculating do you think we'll get more Donkey Kong DLC in Mario Kart World? Do you think this character or that character will be in Mario Tennis? Is it Fever? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I was like, shit, I already forgot. Because the Donkey Kong Bananza DLC was announced after that, and I just immediately pushed it out of my brain. And I'm like, hold your horses. I know everybody's thinking we're going to get all these Donkey Kong characters in these Mario games now. Have you considered that they're not going to do that quite as much now because we could just get a Donkey Kong game along those same lines?
Please?
Yeah.
Please.
I think it's likely. I'm not saying we're not going to get Diddy or Dixie or Funky in any of these games. I'm not saying that that's not happening. I'm not saying no. It's just going to be Donkey Kong from here on out, N64 era style. But I do think there might be some deliberate intention of maybe not diluting it as much and leaving room for these Donkey Kong side games again. That's a very real possibility now. So yeah, beyond just Donkey Kong platformers, be they 3D or 2D, I think we could see things, like Donkey Kong Pickleball on the horizon. Sure, why not?
Oh, he'd love that. Donkey Kong is a master of pickleball. Insane. Just gets to smash it, unlike in tennis. He's so there.
Yeah. Can't wait. Can't wait. Thank you for the call. Let's play our fourth caller.
Hello, Hyle. Hello, Pierre. I'm glad you're on the show. I hope your current Donkey Kong project is going well. This is Chronic calling in for the Groove Layer, which seems very perilous at first. I can't think of many 3D platformer levels where you just start in solitary confinement. I mean, the guards make Sweden look like Texas. They're like, oh, you have a good vibe. We'll let you go. We'll turn it to a little rubber platform so you can bounce out. And I wish they were that accommodating. But the layer itself is, I think, very clever. It sort of abusing the idea of like liminal spaces. Because like a disco, much like a mall or an airport or something, these are places that you only visit, in the day when there's lots of other people around, and they have a very different vibe when there's silence and relatively empty. And I think they did a very good job in making this place at once, like in the end it's going to become this groovy little place that you want to dance in, but also making it this sort of foreboding place that could, conceivably house these prisons where they're just, scooping people in and throwing them in with no evidence. And, at the very end here though, we got Odd Rock back. I was not expecting another Odd Rock mention, and Odd Rock is absolutely enormous here. Like once you are punching down, you finally get to her, I guess. Basically as large as DK, which is basically par for the course for this game. Everything's like bigger than you would think. I assume just for game design reasons. Grumpy Kong is unreasonably big. Roy Kong is basically as big as you are, despite him looking like such a wimpy little guy. But I did like the ending cutscene here, although I feel like the direct kind of tricked me. You get this like without context. You get basically Pauline's whole spiel at like the very end of the direct. It made me feel like there was going to be some more substantial cutscenes as people were falling down between the sinkholes. But it really just happens like the one time. Otherwise, it's just like relatively sparse dialogue, it's not the character moments, and it's not like fully animated in the same way either. But either way, I'm glad I got out of your stomach, and I'm glad we got some more views on like Pauline's special power. We mentioned like, is Pauline a metahuman? I think she is. I think that she has, as Void Kong calls it, special power, and you couldn't even bring Celine Dion down here to get the same effect. Although maybe you could with Celine de Kong. Thank you for taking the call.
Thank you for the call. Surprised we never thought of Celine de Kong. That's just the kind of shit that I think like late era Rare would have thought of for like to fill out one of their racing games.
No, absolutely. That was the most labored schlock I've heard in a while, and I'm proud of you.
Oh, I want that now. I was just thinking about some of the shit Kong ideas we've had on DK Vine over the years. My favorite is Matt came up with Billie Jean Kong. with the play on the famous 70s tennis star. But yeah, Celine de Kong, let's go for it. It can happen now. Once we get Donkey Kong Pickleball, you got to fill out that roster somehow.
Oh, you're killing me here.
But yeah, like, so, you know, everything is bigger in a 3D platformer than the titular star. Look at Banjo and Kazooie. Look at their relative size compared to everything.
Oh, no, absolutely. And, you know, it's good for just gameplay in general, but it allows for these moments of incredible scale and scope as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think we're supposed to necessarily take sizes literally in any of these games. I mean, look at how small K. Rool was in Donkey Kong Land compared to how big K. Rool was in Donkey Kong 64. It's like, what? Same thing with Banjo and Kazooie. You know, I don't think Boggy Bear is that big in comparison to Banjo. I think they're relatively the same size, except, you know, Boggy is a little bit girthier given his gluttony and, hedonistic ways, who would fit in really well in the Groove Layer with the great Harmoneel. Just what a pair they would be. I want that game now, by the way. I know Boggy is owned by Rare and the great Harmoneel is a Nintendo character, but let's get them together. Road Trip.
No.
What was the point of this call? I've lost track now. I'm off designing
I don't know.
bad
I
games.
was distracted by Boggy.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was having a wonderful time.
Again, I have terrible ideas for games. Here's one of them. Bad Dads. There you go.
I appreciate your thought of it as a liminal space, though.
Yes.
The loneliness that we tapped into earlier, but you put it in very eloquent words that I did not. And I appreciate that about you, caller. Lovely.
We all have different areas of eloquence, but that, you know, thankfully many of our listeners on this podcast are also eloquent and can provide insight where we have blinders up. And that's what I love about interacting with the Donkey Kong community is it's full of so many bright people with just wonderful perception. And like, even just sitting down and talking about these worlds with my co-host, I'm learning something about them that I didn't even bring into this episode beforehand. It's just been a magical experience talking about this game step by step, progressing through it in an audible dialogue form. I'm learning things about it that I just completely missed in my own playthrough.
No, and it's to the credit of the game for its just density of ideas and how it polishes each individual aspect as harshly and as brilliantly as it can. I learn something new every conversation that I tune into. And I thought I'd combed this game pretty good. I thought I expended as much as I could on a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm really standing by my decision to do an episode per world. As ridiculous as that sounded in the heat of July, now that we are in the cool light of October, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That was the right call, because there's so much that we would have missed had we just done a couple of episodes on Bananza to get to the juicy spoilers. And I'm glad we've really taken our time with it. And there's still more to come. We're not done yet.
Yeah.
All right. Courtney says, it's been great. I love that we still get to talk about this game thoroughly 2+ months later. It's like it hasn't ended. Well, I mean, part of that was me spending 135 hours actually beating it. You know, that's on me a little bit.
You're good. I'm like 120 hours in. A lot of that is Emerald Rush, but like, you're still pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, God, when I get to the DLC, God, I can't even imagine how, like, what my eventual playtime will be when it's all said and done. It's probably going to be, I mean, it's well over 200 hours, I'm sure, but.
Good.
This is already my most played game on both the Switch 2 and the original Switch.
I think that only Smash eclipses it for me, but it has eclipsed my combined time on any of the NSO apps, which is very impressive, because I played a lot of Picross.
I have played 100 hours plus of Smash Ultimate. I have played 155 hours plus of Donkey Kong Bananza so far.
Good.
Good.
One of those is a better game. We're right.
Anyway, yeah, it's the second greatest game of all time, in my opinion, after Donkey Kong Country 2, which I'm sure I played that more than Bonanza when you factor in my playtimes on the Super Nintendo, on the Game Boy Advance, on the Virtual Console, and on Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh, no doubt. But, like, that game has had a nearly 30-year head start.
Yeah, I'll give Bonanza that. I've certainly played so much of Bonanza in such a relatively short amount of time. Anyway, let's play our fifth call.
Guys, I must apologize. I said a lie. I said something that wasn't true. I simply said the wrong thing. So, in the Donkey Kong Bananza call sack episode, I called it and I said that I basically had nothing to say about the game because everything looked so incredibly good and perfect that it was almost hard to talk about. But I lied because there was actually something about the game that I didn't really click with. But I just kind of didn't have much to say about it. And the truth was at the time, those new Kongs just weren't clicking for me. I just was not resonating with Void, Poppy, or Grumpy. And, you know, I'm the guy who loves the Tiki Sack tribe. I like the Snowmads a lot. Like, I love Donkey Kong having new villains, but those guys they weren't, it's just something about them. I just didn't care. Now, it's a little bit weird for me because I think if I talk, looking at everyone else in the community, I feel like if I and everyone else were to, like, list all the reasons we love Donkey Kong Country, we'd have the same stuff on the list, but in a different order. Like, I think most people would put characters like 2 or 3 on their list, but I'd put characters maybe closer to like 7 or 8. Like, I love characters, but they're not the number one thing. So a group of characters not really clicking was not that big of a deal to me. But then I started, was playing Donkey Kong Bananza and having just a gay old time. That game is so good. It's one of the best games I ever played. And I got to this part of the game, the part you're talking about today on this episode, and something kind of clicked for me. I kind of realized something. I was just playing it, and I was just thinking, do I love Poppy Kong? Is she, like, the best Kong ever? And I kind of just realized, I love these 3 characters, like a lot. Like, I really like all 3 of these Kongs, and I went into this game not really liking them at all. And it's interesting, because it wasn't like a switch flipped when I got to this layer per se. Like, deep in my subconscious, in my core, I feel like I liked these characters since very early in the game. And it was only to when I got to this point in the game did I realize, oh, actually I love these guys. Now, I don't know if they're my favorite Kongs ever. My favorite Kongs generally are Donkey and Funky, and I think that's still broadly true. But these 3 are so good. And this part of the game was the part that really made it click for me and, the front of my brain and my, conscious mind that, yeah, actually I love these characters. They're really good. And I would love to, see them again. I love their stories, and Donkey Kong Bananza just, what a story. What a plot. Just unbelievably good. Top to bottom. Love this game. It's so, so, so good.
Well, thank you for the call. I think you went on the same journey I did with the Void Co. trio, where I was a bit skeptical at first, happy to see new characters, happy to see new Kongs, but to really fall in love with them and to see like how they earn their place in the pantheon of characters in the Donkey Kong series has been one of the undersung delights of Bonanza.
No, completely. Like, I think I, as well as a lot of people, were looking at these characters with some level of trepidation and concern, but upon seeing Poppy and Grumpy, I immediately gravitated towards, oh, those are good and expressive designs, but I was concerned that they would not be anything more than just designs. Like, I remember I really enjoyed the design of Karate Kong and the Ghastly King and whatnot, but they have left no footprint upon me whatsoever as characters, other than they look kind of cool.
2D platformer bongo controlled game versus a rich 3D platformer with a lot of time to luxuriate in character dialogue. It's night and day. Like, I don't think it's fair to really dismiss those characters, but the fact is Nintendo never did anything with them beyond Jungle Beats
No, precisely. But even still, I feel like I don't have as much of a gravitation toward them as I do even, say, Crow. Or,
Yeah.
Chaos or whatnot.
Right.
I can go back further in time to characters that I gravitate toward more. Squirt takes up significantly more of my brain than any of the Kiss Kongs, or all of them combined.
Oh,
because that's a creepy little freak.
I spend once a day ruminating on Squirt. That's not a lie. Once a day, Squirt just pops in there, and I'm like, how do you do, old chum?
That you're a lot politer to your brain Squirt than I am, I will say. But yeah, no, the fact that they have evolved from, like, I sort of am trepidatious on them based on my experience of both previous Donkey Kong games and previous Nintendo titles, to the point of, at this point, I'm, like, trying to draft out a Void Kong cosplay. And I'm really drawn to these characters. They have such a strong element. I made a 25-minute video on Void Kong.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would have like 3 minutes of things to say on him.
And I think it is just the expectation game, what Donkey Kong fans have been conditioned to expect since Rare's acquisition by Microsoft and the couch surfing days of the Donkey Kong series, bouncing from studio to studio. I think we just expected, we were imprinting so much of our experiences, particularly with Jungle Beats, onto Bananza from that initial trailer onward. And the fact that Bananza met our expectations and defied them every step of the way has been like one of the greatest joys. Like, Bananza almost knew what we were going to think, and it was ready for us.
No, precisely. Every time that I see something in Bananza, I go, I would have thought this was indulgent. I would have thought if I were a fan planning this game, people would go, they wouldn't do that. That's too much. That's excessive. And it goes to just like the Donkey Kong fan base's predilection for going, well, we got K-Rool and Smash, so like, I think we're good for a couple years or whatnot. If the almost like greed that we feel unwarrantedly for getting even this littlest bit of attention from being beaten down.
Oh yeah.
And Bananza was like, no. Here's the trough, piggy. Eat up. It's been a long time. I'm like, thank you.
I was confused. I thought you were saying Trough was in Bananza. And I was like, I missed it. I missed Trough from Trough and Scoff.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Because here's the thing. I believed you momentarily. I believed the lie because Bananza treats us so well as fans that I'm like, oh yeah, I could see Trough being in some hidden room somewhere in Groove Layer.
The fact that they replicate the feeding scoff animation that Donkey Kong does when you're giving gold to the Growtones.
Yeah.
Yes. That's insane enough.
I know.
I don't need Nipple Ring Pig compared to that.
Well, that's the thing. When I first saw that, I was like, surely I'm reading into that, right? Surely that's not what is actually happening, because I just don't expect references like that, even simple animations taken from past games.
No, exactly. And like other series get this all the time, and in those it's not even like any form of callback. It's just we've made like 18 Yakuza games and we haven't changed this animation since the first one. It's asset reuse.
Yeah. Well, we have one more call to take, and it is a full 3-minute long call. They got in right at the cutoff point. So I was like, well, that's dedication, that's skill. We got to play it.
Hey, Kongversation. This is just Andre calling in to talk about Groove Layer, specifically the ending sequence. So Mr. Wolf is a heathen. We know this. Don't get me wrong. Pauline as a companion character is a definite improvement over Oddrock, but Oddrock was always more than just making the companion character a literal talking rock just because, that's what you do when you make a game about punching rocks. As a visual element for the game, Oddrock's covered in voice code tape, So as soon as you notice that detail, it's immediately building intrigue about the villains and how Oddrock could possibly fit into whatever they might want and however they might be trying to get it. And all at the same time, it's providing Oddrock with a color scheme that serves a couple different functional roles. And not only does Oddrock's weird voice invite our interest, but it has this kind of strained and stunted way of speaking that Pauline doesn't have that invites our sympathy, which ties in with Oddrock's visual design and its body language. And at the end of Groove Layer, all those tricks the game uses to draw you in toward Oddrock are leveraged against the player. There's a part in Josh's old video about Metroid Fusion that still really sticks with me, where he's talking about the design of Samus in the fusion suit, and he basically says, I don't like seeing her this way. Whether or not you even did feel endeared to Oddrock at the start of the game, that moment where Pauline, literally breaks out of her shell to kick off her first Bananza performance might be the biggest encapsulation for what her character is out of everything in the game. But then here, after Pauline's long since been made just as inextricable to your moment-to-moment experience with the game as DK is, you spend an entire level waiting to reunite with her. And when the moment comes, she's not her anymore. Not only is the void coated back, but now it's encircling her like chains. The environment of the sequence incorporates the purple color scheme in a way that makes it genuinely ominous, and also you get that angry orange and yellow of the void seals clashing with that and making the whole situation feel dangerous and dire. Pauline's whole identity is music, and you get to spend the whole level actively participating in that. But then you go straight from that to this stark ambient dirge. And the getaway dialogues especially condition you to identify Pauline more by the sound of her voice than by the sight of her. But even though the dialogue here is instantly recognizable as the authentic words for Pauline in this situation, they scrape that up against the fact that that's not her voice. So that first moment where you see Pauline as Oddrock again, and immediately all she can say is, BK, help me. That hit me harder than any moment with Pauline before this point or after.
Thank you for the call, Just Andre. See what I meant? Precision timing there. They knew their 3-minute cutoff, and they got it in right as
No,
it
they
closed.
didn't get the R of after out. I have to dock points for that.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess if people are going to complain the way I pronounce certain characters that are never spoken aloud, their names, then I guess we can also be that petty and vindictive towards Just
Exactly.
Andre.
You're far too charitable.
I know. Well, this is why I have such a chip on my shoulder. This is why I have such imposter syndrome, because I consider myself such a piece of shit, even compared to our own callers who can't even finish the very last syllable in their call. No, thank you, Just Andre. Insightful as always.
Yes.
It was a striking moment that I don't feel like I conveyed properly when we were talking about it, to see Oddrock back. Because Oddrock was such this ubiquitous part of early Donkey Kong Bananza. I'm not even talking about early game. I mean early media towards Donkey Kong Bananza. It was such a prominent, visual. And it was almost immediately discarded then. Once you actually progress through Lagoon Layer, once you actually free Pauline from her rocky prison, then you just don't think about Oddrock anymore. Oddrock is off the table. And you forget about, all those, not doctored screenshots and video footage, but I guess, with the switch flipped to have it be Oddrock assets over Pauline assets to create the trailer, to keep that reveal hidden until the direct. You forget about it, and then to see it back. And while Oddrock initially presented this air of mystery and intrigue, here it's actually presented as horror, almost like a tragic visual rather than a mysterious one.
No, absolutely. It's now that you have the context of the character other than, this is a weird marketable mascot. Now you understand that it is the repression, it is the isolation, she is literally trapped within a wonderful resonant windpipe to, all disgust for the Grand Harmoneel aside, this is technically like the most musical, reverberating area in the world, and she is trapped without her voice in it. It is a horrendous position to be put in, and the overall ambiance of the area feels all sorts of wrong, and is a great deal of my animosity toward the big man who you're crawling through. It feels bad. You should have a good tune in your belly if you're going to be like this, dude. But, no, you're entirely right in how she's restrained is, the theme of the game is, of course, breaking free. And that's a resonant theme with Pauline. Even in Mario Odyssey, the credits theme, or not the credits theme, the final theme of the area is named Break Free. And you are Donkey Kong literally performing that action in a highly desperate way. It's thematically fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, like, I do like that the last aspect of restoring music, restoring vibrancy, restoring life to this world and this environment extends then to what has served as Donkey Kong's voice throughout this adventure. Restoring it to Pauline is the last act you achieve in this world. Just a great finale to it, and it really does set things up then for the final push towards the planet core. So, we're not going to talk about that on this episode, though.
Damn, I was so hoping I would get in. I thought I could trick you with charm.
No. Luckily, we have recorded for so long now that I desperately have to break through my urine from my bladder. So we are going to...
Oh, you too? I've been sitting on this for 2.5 hours.
Oh,
it sucks.
I've been dancing, but it's not because Donkey Kong has restored the groove. Let's...
Your idle animation is unfortunate rather than joyous, I see.
Yes, this is Donkey Kong Bananza. It's not Conker's Bad Fur Day, so I don't want to have any incident here. So let's wrap things up. So, final thoughts on Groove Layer. I will say, as a follow-up to both Hilltop and Landfill, it is also able to deftly set up the final act of Bananza, all the while doing so without relying on the Bananza abilities that is just implied in the title of the game, or the presence of Pauline herself. And as I said, it builds on the history of the underground world, the fractones, the importance of music in the underground world society, in Donkey Kong Bananza, the Donkey Kong universe, and honestly to all living things. You, me, our listeners included. Oh, you said you don't like music because of your MP3 player, so maybe I'll exclude you from that then, Pierre.
I like music, I just don't understand it if it's not in a video game first.
And I don't understand game design or how to play a video game. So, I mean, we all have our blind spots. But
what have I been doing here kissing up to you all day? Oh, God.
I said my ideal game is just standing around, which is why I loved being in the museum in Groove Layer. It spoke to me. But what I also really like about Groove Layer is, as has been pointed out, this begins to humanize or monkeyize Poppy from her previous stature as the villainous henchwoman, the femme fatale, the evil ice queen, to an ice queen who is an uneasy ally, and potentially, maybe in the future at some point, maybe a friend, or maybe an acquaintance that you send cards to every holiday season. But
one could hope.
From the start, it takes Donkey Kong from being in a literal prison to unlocking the metaphorical shackles that are placed upon us when we deprive ourselves of music, culture, art, vibrancy, the capacity to feel joy, shared empathy, the benefits that come with being in a society, the things that we ourselves have been closing ourselves off from for the better part of a quarter century. Groove Layer illustrates why that is all fundamentally important towards a happy life. It's a world that's able to communicate so much about the human and simian condition in such a small window of time.
No,
right?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
No,
I was like,
right. No. You're completely correct. I just didn't want to interrupt the soliloquizing.
No. I'm kind of done with that. I was just like, maybe that's a bit much about the world with dancing rock people who really like that the gorilla, the funny monkey, brought back this music.
No, that is a completely incorrect way of thinking that can't have value in this world. I make a pitiful career off of analyzing as much as I can about even the silliest things, even the simplest things, because these messages that can come across, these connections that you can form, they don't age necessarily. They don't become any less important just because they have a supposedly childish facade. What you can take and what you can resonate and what the creators of any given work want you to feel, emotions don't have a level of maturity to them. It's your ability to assess them, to take it in, and to feel that level of connection is what matters, is what determines how mature a specific theme can be. If you got that, if I got that, if anyone listening here got that from the Groove Layer of the Funny Monkey game, that is beautiful. That is valid.
Well said. And it's made me really feel better about my analysis. And then I feel like I can then take it to the next level. There was something I was holding back that I was afraid to say, but you've given me the confidence boost that I needed to say.
Well, perfect.
I feel like Groove Layer is where it became crystal clear that Donkey Kong Bananza, in addition to being just an amazingly fun and well-designed video game, actually has something to say. Almost as much as its clear inspiration, Conker's Pocket Tales.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.